I invite everyone to come closer. Sit or lie down in the way that feels most natural. Close the eyes if that helps. Let the shoulders loosen. Let the jaw soften. A slow breath in, a slow breath out. Tonight we gather with one aim to find peace and a quiet healing that comes from God. The lamp in the corner glows low. The light washes the room in warmth. A thin blanket settles across knees and feet. The air tastes faintly of tea. Outside, the evening holds its steady hush. Somewhere, far off, a soft hover hums. Steady as a heart, this place is safe. This moment belongs to rest. I read the Bible for you before sleep. My voice moves slowly. Each word falls like a small lantern. The sounds do not rush. The meaning comes in gentle pieces. The book that I open is old and kind. It knows worry, and it knows mercy. It reaches toward us with steady hands and simple truths. Let the first truth be small and clear. Worry is not a fault to be hidden. It is a burden we carry like a heavy bag. The bag feels heavier in the dark. It presses on the chest and makes the breath quick. Yet the book offers another way. It asks us to set that bag down, to place it somewhere safe, to lay it at the feet of God's care. Imagine a table beside the bed. The bag sits there. It is not beautiful. It is not necessary. Take one worry now and put it on the table. See its shape. Name it gently in your mind. Not to feed it, but to release it. Let the thought shrink as it rests. When the first worry sits still, another comes with quieter steps. Pick that one up. 2. Place it beside the first. The pile looks less frightening when it is no longer being carried. The words I read tell of a father who watches the sparrows. He does not forget the small things. This image steadies the breath. It shows care that attends to tiny lives. The same care attends to the small hearts here. Imagine a wide hand reaching down. It does not make noise. It simply takes the piled worries and lifts them. Feel the weight lighten at the touch. Do not rush this letting go. Let each thought move slowly from chest to table, from table to hands, and from hands to God. The act itself is a prayer, soft and unadorned. It need not be clever. It need not be long. It is honest and plain. A short offering, a surrender of the day's tightness. In the quiet, I read passages that comfort. I do not debate. I do not argue. The voice simply points to care. I describe how a shepherd guides his flock. He knows each path and calls each name. This shepherd walks beside the tired ones. He bends to lift the ones who stumble. Picture a gentle hand on a shoulder, steady and sure. That touch is the kind of comfort we receive. Let the imagination rest here. Hear footsteps in soft soil. See the moon spill silver on the path. The shepherd and the flock move slowly. There is no hurry. The sky listens. The night breathes. This is the rhythm of rest. A promise comes next. And it is plain. It speaks of peace that arrives when anxious thoughts are handed over. The peace is not a sudden vanishing of trouble. It is a quiet presence that steadies the mind when storm winds blow. It settles like a warm cloth on a forehead. It cools an overwrought heart. Imagine that cooling sensation now. Feel it lower the pulse. Notice the muscles letting go. The reading does not demand perfection. It does not insist on quick fixes. It acknowledges weariness and answers with mercy. Mercy is like shelter after a long walk. It opens without judgment. It covers without condition. Sit under that shelter. Let the rain pass by. Hear the steady drip on the roof. And know that no storm lasts forever. I invite simple actions that help the mind learn to trust again. They are small and sensory. Place a hand on the chest and feel the breath. Count 4 slow beats. Hold 2. Release 6. Feel how the breath lengthens. Let the rhythm speak a single truth. You are held. Another action is to picture light entering the body. It begins at the forehead and travels down. It warms the brow, softens the eyes, follows the line of the jaw, and rests at the heart. The light carries calm. It does not erase memory. It simply changes the way the mind remembers. The past becomes softer. The present loosens its tightness. The future grows less frightening. The reading offers images rather than complicated doctrine. A boat on quiet water, a lamp by a bedside, hands that mend torn garments. Each image is simple, and each one carries a promise of care. Return to those images whenever worry arrives again. Let them be anchors. Mercy and hope come together like a pair of hands. Mercy takes what is broken. Hope lifts toward what is possible. Even in small steps, hope moves. Imagine a single flower pushing through cold soil. The bloom is not sudden glory. It is a quiet triumph. That is how hope often begins small, persistent, and patient. I keep the voice low. The words slide into the room like soft rain. There is time to listen to one phrase and let it sit. There is time to breathe between lines. The heart needs space to receive, to rest, and to return. Tonight I also speak of gratitude as a gentle practice. Gratitude does not deny pain. It simply opens the hand to notice what is still good. Name 3 small things that brought a flicker of warmth today. A cup of tea, a brief smile, a moment of quiet. Let those things sit at the edge of the chest. They are grain-sized, but they build a steady foundation when gathered. Do not aim for dramatic change. Rest in the tiny shifts. When attention trains on small kindnesses, it loosens the grip of worry. The mind learns new trails. It takes a path that looks for light rather than shadow. As a reader, I often pause to let the silence speak. Silence is not absence. It is a companion. It carries the echo of truth. In the hush, the words I have read settle. They find places in the heart to rest. Let the silence now be broader. Breathe into it. Allow the chest to move slowly with the rhythm of night. If sleep comes now, lead it. Sleep is part of the healing. It knits weary places. It allows the body to mend. If wakefulness stays instead, let the mind wander kindly through the images offered. Trace the shepherd's path. Feel the light entering the body. Watch the worries rest on the table and grow lighter. Before I close this part of the reading, take one more careful breath. Inhale hope. Exhale tension. Imagine the pile of worries on the table and see them smaller than before. Know that each worry is known. Each is seen. Each is invited into a larger care that does not end in the night. When the next section begins, I will open the book more fully. I will read passages that carry the same hush. The pace will not change. The tone will remain gentle. The aim is the same rest. Mercy, slow healing, and a quiet assurance that God is near. For now, rest in the present hush. Let the last thought of the day be a small offering. Place it on the table. Feel the hands lift. Feel the weight shift. Sleep if it comes. Keep listening if it does not. Either way, the care that surrounds this moment continues. I will stay with this quiet until it is time to read aloud again. End this part with a soft, deliberate intention to lay down the worries and receive gentle peace. The room breathes. The night leans in. The book waits. When ready, open both hands and let the reading begin. I turn the page slowly. The paper whispers. My voice moves gently across the room. I read for you before sleep. The words I choose are soft and plain. They carry a steady promise. The passage I hold speaks of presence. It tells us not to be afraid. It says that God is with us. It says not to be discouraged. It speaks of strength that arrives quietly. It promises help and steady hands that do not let go. Hear that promise not as a loud command, but as a warm fact. It settles like a blanket. Lie back or stay sitting. Let the head find its best rest. Place a hand, if that feels right, over the place under the sternum, where breathing begins to feel true. Feel the subtle rise and fall. Let attention rest there like a moth on a lamp. This room is small and safe. The lamp is low. The air holds the faint scent of something warm and simple. Outside, distant hums keep time. Inside, the pulse slows when the thought of presence settles in the chest. Presence is a small, steady thing. It does not rush. It does not force. It stays close and calm. Imagine a field after the rain. The soil is soft. Roots find perches without hurry. That same steadiness meets the soul tonight. Strength is not a sudden surge. It is like roots deepening, like a tree holding fast against wind. Picture your feet finding quiet ground. Picture strength spreading inward from the soles, rising through the legs and resting behind the ribs. The body learns to stand in a different way when the inner roots are known. I invite a small exercise now. Close the eyes if you have not. Breathe slowly in for 4 counts. Hold 2. Breathe out for 6. Each cycle is a small ceremony. With each out-breath, imagine tension loosening at the joints. With each in-breath, imagine a soft steadiness moving toward the heart. Do this 3 times. Let the rhythm be unhurried. The promise I read also speaks of help. Help often arrives in ways that are visible only after a time. A hand placed on a shoulder, a steady voice in the night, a presence that refuses to leave. Imagine a hand, not heavy, but firm and gentle, resting lightly near the shoulder blade. It does not crowd, it holds. Feel the shoulders loosen at that imagined contact. Trust the smallness of the touch. There is mercy here. 2. Mercy is like a cove where the tide carries worn boats. It accepts what is battered and makes room. It does not demand repair before welcoming. Sit in that cove. Let worn edges receive attention without rush. The promise is not that trouble vanishes, but that it meets care that sees it whole, even while it is still mended. If honesty comes up now, let it come. Speak quietly to the space inside. Name a worry in a single word. Do not argue with it. Do not try to fix it. Just name it. Then let it rest. Imagine writing that single word on a leaf. Set the leaf on a slow-moving stream. Watch it travel without force. The leaf does not need directions. It floats. You can follow the motion with the mind and notice how the chest becomes lighter by degrees. Comfort arrives in soft images. Picture a small lantern hung near a doorway. Its light is modest. It shows one step at a time. The path does not need to be seen all at once. One step, then another. The lantern will be enough for the foot. This is the measure of progress in the quiet nights. Small, visible light for the next step. I speak of courage as a quiet presence, not an answering shout. Courage. Here is the decision to remain gentle with oneself. It is the choice to hold on to hope when the mind pulls toward darker stories. Hope in this hour is like a bud under frost. It is not yet bloom. It keeps its shape. It presses gently against the cold and promises spring in its slow way. Please remember, this place is a safe space. Honesty is welcome. Comfort is offered without conditions. Spiritual renewal comes in small measures. This hour is not for proving anything. It is for receiving care. If a thought arrives that feels large and sharp, allow it to be seen and then set it aside. Let it be present and not be the whole. If this time steadies the breath, consider joining the others who come here. If it helps to know you are not alone, find the little button to subscribe. Leave a gentle comment when you feel ready. Sharing can be a small light for someone else who sits in quiet tonight. The community of listeners gathers slowly, like moths to a lamp, finding solace in the same hush. Now, let us return to the feeling of being held. Imagine 2 hands, careful and patient, placed under the center of the chest. They do not lift with force. They simply uphold. The sensation is not dramatic. It is a mild relief that spreads outward, unlimiting the sternum, thawing the shoulders, easing the jaw. Allow that sensation to move at its own pace. Sometimes fear hides behind the teeth. It tightens the jaw and makes the tongue restless. To soften that place, allow a small smile, not wide or forced, but a gentle curve that loosens the mouth. The muscles there carry memory. Let them remember the possibility of rest. If thoughts come that replay the day's sharp edges, observe them as if watching birds through a window. Notice their color and shape. Do not open the window to chase them. Let them drift away. Return attention to breath, to the lantern image, to the steady hand. These returnings are acts of mercy toward the self. I will now offer a brief invitation for a simple promise. Choose one tiny thing to carry into tomorrow. It might be to drink water slowly in the morning. It might be to notice one small kindness. It could be to give yourself a pause before answers. Hold that promise in the mind as a pebble. It will be small, but its weight can steady the pocket of the day when it becomes heavy. The passage that I read also brings a reminder of staying power. It promises that help will come and that accompaniment endures. Accompaniment is like a horizon that does not move. Even when clouds cross, the horizon keeps its place. Imagine looking out and seeing that firmness. Let it steady the gaze of the heart. Before this part closes, take one more slow breath that fills the belly. Let the out-breath be long and soft. Notice how the body responds when the breath has room to move. The rhythm becomes the map you return to when thoughts scatter. Rest with the reality that you are seen and cared for. Rest with the image of steady hands and the hush of the cove. Rest with the small lantern that shows one step at a time. If sleep comes, let it arrive naturally. If wakefulness remains, let the mind wander in slow, kind images. Return to the breath when needed. When the next section begins, I will open the book again and read with the same quiet care. The pace will not change. The tone will stay gentle. The aim is the same: to ease the body, calm the mind, and gather a soft hope for the morning. For now, keep a quiet intention. Breathe in steadiness. Breathe out fear. Place the small pebble of your chosen promise in the palm of your mind. Let the hands that hold you remain steady through the night. I will be here when the next reading begins. I turn the page with deliberate care. The paper breathes under my fingers. Mój voice stays low. I read what the night needs to hear. Tonight the words point to one sure thing: you are not alone. The promise is simple. God walks with the weary. God lends strength when arms grow tired. That truth sits beside the bed like an old friend who comes without fanfare. It does not shout. It only stays. I ask you to notice how that promise feels in the body. Do not argue with the thought. Let it arrive like a small heat along the spine. Imagine the weight behind the ribs easing by a few degrees. A quiet steadiness sets in. There is no need to fix everything at once. Presence tends to what is closest first. There is a moment I keep in my pocket. I bring it out tonight because it is small and true. It happened one winter long ago. I was not a stranger to fear then. The kind of fear that makes the hands tremble and the night feel too near. A loved one lay in a room down the hall. I sat in a chair with the light off. The clock in the corridor had a soft click. The air smelled of cooling coffee and antiseptic. Time felt stretched and thin. I pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes. The chest was tight. Prayers came in pieces. None of them felt enough. And yet, in that stretched silence, something shifted. It was not a thunderclap of certainty. It was a presence that came like a hand being placed very gently at the center of the back. Not heavy, not demanding, just there to hold a posture upright. The whole sat between the shoulder blades. Breath lengthened without effort. The mind, which had been circling 100 sharp thoughts, quieted to a single, steady thought. This is being kept. Tears moved without noise. The fear did not vanish. But it did not need to be the whole room. The moment drew a line of grace around the chest. A small courage grew enough to sit, enough to wait, enough to keep watch. I remember thinking then that strength can enter like warm water. It does not shove, it soaks. It moves through what is frozen. That memory is not a proof. It is an invitation. I bring it now, so you can borrow it for a minute. Let it press against the places that worry has tightened. The book before me speaks a similar instruction. It asks us to place our burdens somewhere safe. It does not tell us to carry them forever. It offers the act of laying them down. Imagine, for a moment, a heavy coat at the end of winter. The coat is thick and has held in storm. You do not need it indoors. You can take it off. The coat can rest on the back of a chair. The chair will bear its weight. This practice is not magic. It is an action of trust. The verse I read tells us to cast our load on God and to rely on that God for carrying. Picture in your mind a small heap of stones. Each pebble is a worry. One is something expected tomorrow. One is a sharp regret. One is a quiet fear with no name. Pick one pebble now. Hold it with care. Name it in the mind with a single word. Do not argue. Do not explain. Simply name. Then, with a long breath, imagine placing that pebble into open hands that are steady and sure. Watch the fingers close over it with gentle surety. The pebble does not need instructions. It is known. The load begins to settle somewhere larger than you. Listen for the little echo that follows. It is the sound of a weight shifting to where it can be borne. If it helps, give the motion a place. Picture a broad stone by a quiet path. It is smooth, with years of weather. Set the pebble there. The stone accepts it without surprise. You do not need to keep adjusting. The pebble will remain while you rest. The act of laying it down is itself an answer. It is a trusting gesture that says, I cannot carry this alone. I choose to receive help. This casting of burdens does not erase the need for care or for action. Sometimes, burdens lead to steps that must be taken. Sometimes they require conversation or a slow mending. But the first move is always relief. Relief makes room for clear thinking. When shoulders are not hunched with all the weight, the hands can begin to work with tenderness. That is the gift of placing the load somewhere, able to hold it. Try this now with a breath. Breathe in slowly. Let the air reach the base of the lungs. Inhale a calm. Exhale and imagine the burden shifting from your chest to the open hands before you. Feel the soft change. Allow the shoulders to drop a little. Notice the small space that opens behind the ribs. Rest there for a few counts. If another worry returns, repeat the motion. Each repetition is not failure. It is practice. There is a tenderness in being permitted to offload. The world often praises endurance that never bends. But endurance that endures is the kind that rests and returns. Strength grows in the space carved by rest. Presence gives that space. It does not shame the worn. It steadies them. I also want to speak of the quiet voice that often accompanies this kind of reassurance. It is not a voice you hear with the ears. You feel it in a steadying of the hands and in the softening of the jaw. It tells no long stories. It simply points to what matter. Stay, breathe. Trust that help is near. This quiet voice does not push the mind into certainties. It invites the heart to trust what is real in the moment. Remember that the act of casting is gentle. Picture a child putting a toy into a small basket and closing the lid. The child does not force but does not hesitate. The toy is safe. The basket can hold many cares. You may use words as you do this. You may not. Either way is enough. For anyone listening now who feels the weight heavy, choose one small thing to set down. It can be the worry about a call you expect. It can be the memory that wakes you too early. Place it on the stone. Let your hands be still for a while. Notice how your breathing changes. Do not demand a sudden peace. Notice the little loosening. That is the work of presence. If it comforts, picture again that winter night where hands steadied me. Revisit the place where warmth arrived in a small, definite way. Let that memory be a proof that presence has touched you before. The knowing that you have been helped once opens the door to trusting it again. Memory becomes a map. Keep the action simple over the next hours. When worry approaches, name it. Place it in the hands before you. Rest your palms on your knees. Feel the body respond. Sleep can follow, or the mind may stay awake and move through images of gentleness. Both are acceptable. I will sit with this hush for a few more moments. The lamp in the corner remains low. The sounds outside keep their measured rhythm. If you find your eyes heavy, allow them to close. Let the breath be the small metronome that guides the rest. When the next part begins, I will read with the same care. The pace will stay slow. The promise will continue presence. Mercy. A hand that holds. For now, take one more steady breath. Place a pebble on the stone if you need to. Feel the weight shift. Rest in the fact that you are not tasked to carry everything tonight. Stay with that thought until the pause grows long and the room grows still. Then, if sleep comes, lead it. If wakefulness remains, keep returning to the hands and the stone. Either way, know that what you release is being received. The night keeps that exchange safe. I will be here when the reading resumes. I turn the page with care. The room listens. My voice stays low. I read the text that asks us not to carry every sharp thing alone. The passage says, in its own quiet way, that prayer is the route to handing over what ache is. It asks for an honest telling, and then it promises a kind of guardianship for the heart and mind. I do not read it as a rule. I read it as an invitation. Think of prayer not as a performance, but as a small handing over. The motion is gentle. It is like opening a palm and letting something rest there. It does not mean having no worries later. It means having a place for them that can bear weight. The promise that follows is not drama. It is a steady peace that stands guard. That peace keeps watch in the night. It does not demand that problems vanish. It simply steadies the spirit while the world goes on. I tell you this because I have tried both ways. I have clutched the hurt until the fingers went numb. I have also learned the other route, where burdens find a different home. One night I practiced it in a small, ordinary way. The memory is plain, and I bring it now because the detail helps give shape to the invitation. A long time ago, I carry a worry that feels like an old suitcase. It is not pretty. It has scuffs and a tape on the handle. The worry is about a choice I had to make for someone I love. The decision looks simple on paper, but feels heavy inside. Nights become a loop of plans and worst-case thoughts. I move through them like a person trapped on a narrow path. Sleep slips away. I sit at the windowsill where the light pools. The moon is thin and pale. I make a small list of the things that press most. I write them down in plain words. Each line is a small confession. I do not try to fix the language. I only name what I carry. When the list is folded, my hands feel slightly different. The act of naming loosens a tightness that I did not notice until it moves. I speak then, not a long prayer, but a short offering. I tell the room that I bring these things forward. I give thanks for a single thing first, a small kindness from the day. A warm tea, a word that kept me upright. That act of thanks is quiet, but it is important. It shifts the posture from desperation to honesty. I ask, simply, that the weight be received. I say that I cannot carry it well tonight, and that I choose to set it somewhere safe. Then I place the folded paper into my palm and imagine an open hand larger than mine waiting to take it. The image is not ornate. It is a patient palm by a bedside. I do not feel a sudden disappearance. I feel a soft transfer. A cold that has been around the collarbone loosens. The breath, which had been short and sharp, lengthens by a few measures. That small change is enough. I stay there for several slow minutes. Eyes closed. The room is not empty of thought. Some worry threads through, like a thin reed in water. It moves. It does not sweep the whole scene. The peace that comes is like a warm cloth laid over the chest. It does not snuff out pain. It steadies it. It keeps the heart from being the whole event. I sleep that night in pieces. They are enough. In the morning, I do not find that the decision itself is suddenly solved. The work of choices remains, but I find a clearer mind. For the next step, pain is present. But it is not the only presence. That is the small miracle. The passage promises. The peace becomes the room from which I act, rather than the thing that is acting upon me. This way of praying is practical. It asks for two things that I can do in the dark. First, name the burden. A single word will do. Second, add a short thanks. Then offer the whole in an honest phrase or silence. The form is small, so that the motion is possible when the mind is raw. The promise is that after this honest handing over, a peace arrives to guard the heart. It is a peace that does not rush the mind into forgetting. It simply opens a new posture for the night. Try it with me now. Breathe slowly. Imagine a single worry in the center of the chest. Give it a name. Say that name to the hush. Then, name one thing that was gentle today. Offer both into open hands. Picture the hands as steady and warm. Allow the breath to lengthen. As you do this, hold the short pause. Let the chest unclench. Do this 2 more times. If thoughts return, do not accuse yourself. Return the motion. The practice is gentle repetition. The tenderness is not a trophy to win. It is a habit to grow. In time, the muscles of trust learn how to relax. The mind finds a new rhythm for rest. This is how solace arrives more often than not. It is not a lightning strike. It is a slow drawing in of calm. It is the quiet placing of burdens into a larger care. When that care keeps watch, the heart can move with more freedom. Action can come from a steadier place. Rest can come with less guilt. Sometimes I use a small object to help. A smooth stone from the river. A folded scrap of paper. I hold it while I say the small prayer. The object is not magic. It only helps the hands know the motion. You may hold nothing at all. The breath is sufficient. Remember to include thanksgiving. That part alters the angle of the request. Gratitude does not erase pain. It simply asks the heart to notice where light exists among the shadows. Even a single small kindness can shift the tone of the night. Make that small notice part of the handing over. As I read these words tonight, I keep my voice steady. I do not preach. I only offer what has been true for me. The script we read together asks for prayer mixed with thanks. The promise that follows is peace. It is a peace that keeps guard. It helps the mind sleep and helps the heart breathe. If you are awake, place a hand where you can feel the rise and fall of breath. Breathe in with a quiet intent. At the top of the breath, name one burden in a single word. As you breathe out, offer it to care. Add a quick word of thanks. Do this slowly, 3 times. Notice the small loosening at the base of the neck. Notice the softness behind the eyes. The night is full of small gifts. A steady hum beyond the window. A lamp left low. A blanket that weighs just enough. Let the promise of the passage become a practical rhythm for the hours to come. When the mind stirs with fear, return to naming, offering, and thanks. Let the peace stand guard until dawn. I will leave you now with that small action in your pocket. Keep it where your hands can find it tonight. Sleep if it comes. Remain awake if it does not. Either way, know that what you release is being received. The care that we speak of holds more than what a single night can show. When the next part begins, I will read again and walk with you through another gentle image. The pace will not change. The tone will stay the same. For now, take 3 slow breaths. Name one burden. Give thanks for one small light. Offer both into hands that will hold them through the night. Rest in that steadiness. I turn the page with a careful hand. The lamp throws a small circle of light. My voice is low. I read slowly for the tired. Tonight, a short invitation rests on the page. It welcomes the weary. It promises rest. Think of rest as an open chair by the water. The chair is not fancy. It is steady. It waits. The invitation is gentle. It asks nothing from the body except to come. It asks nothing from the mind except to try. The promise is simple. Bring what is heavy and set it down. Stay a while. Let your heart be quiet. I tell a memory now. It is the kind of night that taught me the shape of this promise. The sea was cold. The sky was a sheet of black broken by lightning. I was on a small boat. The light behind me was a thin smear. The motor coughed and fell into a long, frightened silence. Wind pressed at the sides like a hand that would not let go. Fear arrives in a bright way on nights like that. It is all sound and motion. The breath becomes quick and sharp. Thoughts scatter like gulls. I had no dramatic words then. I had a small prayer that felt like a heartbeat. I named the fear out loud. I did not argue with it. I called it by a single word. The naming was not clever. It was honest. After the naming, I offered something else. I told, in one simple phrase, that I could not carry the night alone. I did not explain reasons. I did not list plans I hoped would work. I only said that the weight was more than my hands. I asked, simply, for it to be held. The asking was quiet. It fit in my chest like a key. What happened next felt like hands on the tiller. Steady and sure. Not a miracle in the shout and flare sense. A small steadiness slid into the shoulders. The breath, which had stuttered, found a longer pace. The mind, which had been a tight knot, began to unravel in a few careful threads. The waves were still the waves. The storm did not vanish. I did not wake in a different place. But the center of the night changed. Prayer did not remove the storm. Prayer shifted where the storm sat inside me. The motion was like someone setting a lantern on the deck. The light did not calm the sea, but it turned the fear into something seen rather than imagined. The hands that steadied the wood did not demand that I be brave. They only held the place where courage could return. I remember watching rain run down the hull. Each drop was a tiny drum. My breathing slowed to match that soft, steady. I kept the eyes on the horizon and on the small glow where a distant shore might be. I let the simple words of thanks slip out when a memory of warm bread crossed my mind. That small gratitude was not a cure. It changed the tone. It turned the heart from being only a map of danger into a room where light also lived. This is what the invitation offers. Come with what breaks you. Come with the parts you do not know how to keep. Bring the heavy decision. Bring the thin. Wordless fear at 3 a.m. Sit in the open chair. Lay the load down. Rest. Rest is not always sleep. Rest can be a steadiness in the chest. It can be a softening of the jaw. It can be the slow expansion of breath. It can be the recognition that one does not have to hold everything by oneself tonight. The promise gives permission. Permission loosens the grip. Try a gentle practice with me now. Place one hand over the place that moves with each breath. Feel the skin rise and fall. Breathe in for a slow count of 4. Hold for 2. Breathe out for 6. Name one thing that weighs on you in a single word as you inhale. As you exhale, imagine setting that word into an open palm beside you. Do this 3 times. Keep the pace unhurried. Let the motion be as plain as putting a cup down. If the mind objects, do not argue. Return to the breath. The repetition is the practice. The practice teaches the muscles of the heart to release. when I read the invitation aloud. I do not force any language into heavy doctrine. I offer the picture. Come here. Lay down. Rest. The words are meant to shape a posture more than to change a list of beliefs. They invite a body to shift from carrying to receiving. Sometimes the receiving is very short. It is just a minute where the chest feels lighter enough to think carefully. Sometimes it lasts through a night of interrupted sleep. The offering of burdens is not a single act of triumph. It is a repeated movement. Each night it may look different. Each time it builds a small trust. The harbor image helps. Imagine a small harbor with a steady wall. The sea thumps against it. The small boats float and bob, but the wall keeps the worst of the waves away from the moorings. When you bring what is heavy, picture placing it aboard one of those boats for a little while. The boat will not fix everything. It will only hold what you cannot at the moment. You can return for it when your hands are ready again. I want to remind you about thanks. A short word of gratitude can change the angle of the asking. It does not pretend pain is gone. It marks that light still exists. In the storm on the water, a thought of a warm towel became a small island in my mind. It gave the chest something to rest on other than dread. That is all gratitude needs to do. It needs to point toward what is not broken, as well as what is. If sleep presses close now, let it. If the night keeps you awake, let the invitation stay beside you like an unlit lamp. Revisit the small practice. Breathe. Name. Place. Thank. Rest. Each tiny repetition is a step onto a safer shore. I keep my voice low in case the room leans into sleep. The cadence matters. Slow words make room for the body to follow. The images I offer are not ornate. They are ordinary. A chair. A harbor wall. A lantern. Ordinary things are easier to hold in the dark. For those who listen often, this is not new. For those who listen for the first time, know that the motion is simple enough to do without long study. The heart does not need complicated language to accept care. It needs a steady invitation and the chance to answer it. Before I close this part, take one more slow breath. Feel the hand on the chest. Picture the open chair by the water. Imagine laying down one small burden on the seat. Allow a brief thanks for any small warm thing you notice today. Keep the motion soft. The invitation will remain while you sleep. It is not a command that vanishes at dawn. It is a place to return to when the mind wakes with its old lists. The promise to rest extends beyond the single night. It is patient and unhurried. When the next part begins, I will read on. The pace will not change. I will keep the lantern low and the images plain. For now, rest in the steady sound of the breath. Let the night hold you. Let the open chair keep watch. Lay down what is heavy. Receive the small, steady peace that follows. If sleep does not come, keep breathing with the same care. Return to the shore in your mind. Stay with the small, steady picture. If tears come, let them move without hurry. They are part of the release. If calm comes, let it sit for a moment like a warm cloth on the shoulders. I will be here when the reading resumes. For now, accept the invitation to rest. Place one palm over your heart. Breathe. Name one burden. Offer it with a small thanks. Let the weight move into a place that can hold it tonight. The night will keep that exchange safe. I turn the page slowly. The night is still. My voice moves in small, even steps. Tonight I read a verse that asks a simple thing. Lay your worries down because someone larger cares for each one. It is not a demand. It is a careful invitation. The promise feels like a hand that watches the small details. Picture a seamstress at a tiny table. She works by lamplight. Each stitch receives attention. She does not hurry. She watches the thread. If a knot forms, she untangles it with patient fingers. That image helps me understand the kind of care being offered. It is not loud. It does not grandstand. It tends to whatever is fragile. There is a memory that comes now. I bring it not as proof, but as a small map, years ago, when life felt full of small, sharp things. Exhaustion built like dirt in the joints. Days blurred with errands and schedules. Nights were the only place where thoughts gathered enough light to feel heavy. One evening after months of wear, a child finally slept in my arms. The house was thin with quiet. Outside, insects sang low in the hedges. I sat on the stoop with a cool cup of tea growing warm. The street lamp cast a soft circle. The mind kept returning to a list of what-ifs. Bills. Small kindnesses unsaid. A plan undone. Each worry felt like a tiny snag on a knitted sleeve. Nothing dramatic. Only many small pulls that kept the chest tight. I opened the book and found the words that asked me to bring those small things forward. The instruction was precise and gentle place. Each anxious thought somewhere trustworthy. I tried it in a way that felt foolish and simple. I named one worry softly. I let the name sit. Then another. I did not try to fix any of them. I only invited them into a place capable of holding them. Relief did not arrive as a sudden light. It entered like a breeze through an open window. It slipped under the collar and cooled the back of the neck. That small change made room for my hands to loosen. The list was the same. The night was the same. Yet something inside had permission to breathe differently. That permission felt like being allowed to put down a child's blanket and stand again. What comforts me in this passage is the attention to particulars. The promise does not say, hold only the big things. It names everything. Every care is noticed. Imagine a gardener who tends a long row of tiny seedlings. Each one gets the same careful turn of soil, the same measured watering. No seed is dismissed. That is the posture of this care. It notices the smallness and does not hurry past it. If you are awake now, try a small motion with me. Keep the breath unhurried. Think of a single, specific worry. Make it small in the mind, not huge or booming, just a pebble. Give it a name that is brief, a single word. See it clearly, like a stone on a path. Then imagine a set of hands that are steady and calm. They accept the pebble without surprise. They do not lecture. They only hold it. The act itself is gentle. It is not a test of faith. It is a practice of trust. The passage invites repetition, not performance. If a second worry arrives, repeat the motion. If the mind protests, return to breath and name once more. Over time, the muscle of trust grows in the chest. It learns how to relax when the load appears. There is a tiny detail in the memory that remains helpful after the small motion of naming and offering. A quiet came that allowed me to notice something ordinary and good. A moth settled on the screen. The moth's wings trembled in the lamp's halo. That small scene felt like an answer, not to erase need, but to soften the edge of it. When worries stop being the only visible thing, other small mercies can be seen. The careful attention promised here is practical. It does not make pain vanish. It makes room for clarity. When a shoulder is not braced under the entire day's weight, hands can move differently. Decisions come with less shaking. Sleep finds shorter routes into the mind. This is the quiet work of care. It does not always change the situation, but it changes the place from which a person faces it. Think of a watchmaker at a bench. Tiny gears are examined one by one. A single misplaced tooth can stop the whole mechanism. The watchmaker does not throw away the whole thing. Attention goes to the small part. Repair begins there. The careful attention of the promise is like that. It notices minute things and tends them without a rush to grand fixes. In my reading, I keep the tempo slow on purpose. Each word is a small lantern. Let the sound land and be absorbed between phrases. Take an extra breath. Feel how the rib cage tucks and opens. This simple breathing is not decoration. It helps the body accept an invitation to ease. There are practical ways to make this posture part of the night. Keep a small pad by the bed. When thoughts gather, write a single line. Fold the paper. Place it where it will not be read tonight. The act of setting it aside makes a physical space for rest. Or use an object as a marker, a smooth pebble, a scrap of fabric. Hold it for a moment. Then place it down. The hand learns a motion. The mind learns a pattern. Do not mistake gentleness for passivity. This care encourages honest action where needed. Sometimes burdens require speaking, mending, or asking help. The difference is where the energy begins. When the chest is not carrying everything, hands can reach out for help in steadier ways. The patience that comes from being unburdened is the ground for wiser steps. If doubt arises tonight about whether every small concern matters, consider how easily a tiny leak wears away a roof. Small things left unattended become larger threats inside a day. The promise here is that what feels minor is still noticed. The care that watches is not inattentive to the little things. It holds them as tenderly as the large ones. One more small practice before this part closes. Breathe in slowly. As the breath fills you, imagine the list of small cares gathering like a handful of soft cloths. Each cloth is one worry. On the out-breath, fold them gently and set them into open hands. Feel the hands steady. No hurry to judge. Rest in the few seconds of lightness before the next cycle. Repeat twice more. When sleep comes, let it. Sleep is part of the repair. It takes what the body cannot do awake and does it without asking for permission. If wakefulness remains, Lean into slow images. Picture a seamstress smoothing a patch, a gardener tending seedlings, a watchmaker adjusting a gear. Let their careful attention settle into the chest like a warm cloth. I read these words because the night often magnifies small things. The book asks us to hand them over. The act is small and steady. The care that receives is detailed and patient. This is not a sermon. It is a bedside practice. It is an invitation to simple trust. Before I close this part, take a last slow breath with me. Let the in-breath lift the shoulders a little. Let the out-breath lower them. Picture one small worry placed into hands that notice and keep. Feel a quiet answer in the ribs that is not a solution, but a presence. Hold that feeling for a few beats. It is enough now. When the next part begins, I will open the page again and read with the same quiet. The pace will not change. The tone will remain gentle. The aim is the same, to carry small lights into the dark and to remind the heart that careful attention keeps watch. For now, rest with the knowledge that nothing is too small to be known and kept. I turn the page with the same slow care. The lamp still rests low. My voice moves like a small tide. Tonight, the words point to another quiet practice. They ask for honesty between people. They name a gentle remedy to say what is wrong and to let others pray with us. The text speaks of healing that follows when faults are named and held together. Confession here is not a dramatic reckoning. It is a soft unburdening. It is an opening of the hands that have been clenched too long. The act is simple. A weight becomes lighter when it is shared. When a fault is named out loud, it loses the power to grow in secret places. When one person admits a failing and another listens without judgment, a space forms where healing can begin. Think of a small wound under a bandage. If ignored, it grows warm and tight. If the bandage is lifted with care, the air reaches the sore. Medicine can be applied. The same is true of faults and hurts in the heart. Name them gently. Let a trusted person hold them for a while. Healing follows when the hurt is seen and tended. A memory comes that fits this passage. It is not a loud moment. It is a simple evening in a living room, where soft chairs circle a coffee table. The house smells faintly of lemon and old books. Outside, rain pats the windows with a steady sound. A few of us gather there after a long day. Conversation begins thinly, like a thread being found. Then the room quiets, because someone speaks plainly about a small failure. The voice is not shamed or theatrical. It is weary and honest. When the admission comes, something shifts in the room. People do not hurry away. Instead, heads incline. There is no harshness. There is a slow leaning toward care. Someone else answers by naming their own small fault. Another voice follows. The cycle continues, not as accusation, but as mutual opening. The space grows less brittle. The tightness each carried loosens a little. A hand rests lightly on a knee. A cup of tea cools on the table. Tears come in small, soundless lines. The act of confession is simple, a sentence about what went wrong, an acceptance of the fact, and a request for prayer or help. no great speech, no spotlight, just truth, offered into a room that will not throw it back with shame. This sharing does a practical thing. It allows others to pray with specificity. Prayers become not abstract wishes, but fingers that touch exact places of need. What I noticed then was how attentive care followed the honesty. The prayers are short. Each petition mentions the same small details that were just named. The words are slow and plain. The tone is steady. A sense of being seen grows where invisibility had ruled. It is as if someone puts a clear light over the wound, so the right tending can begin. Physically, the change is subtle and sure. The shoulders lower by a degree. The breath finds a longer line. The jaw that has been clenched relaxes. The mouth keeps time with the calm. It is not that the problem turns to joy instantly. It simply becomes manageable in a way. It was not while hidden. Action can follow from that steadiness. Repair begins in small steps. God's attentive care is felt in that room. It arrives as quiet focus. It does not rush the process or demand a quick cure. Instead, it stays with the tender places. The sense is that every small confession is noticed, and that nothing said in honesty will be wasted. The care surrounds the truth spoken. It does not add an extra burden of shame. It brings mercy. There is a specific moment I keep in mind. After a short silence, someone brings a small prayer that names the need and asks for strength, rather than perfection. The voice is not high or dramatic. It simply calls for steadiness. While the prayer is said, a hand folds over another. The touch is firm and gentle. The house hums with the sound of rain. And that small human contact feels like a steadying presence. In that stillness, a sense of being known and kept settles in. It is the precise kind of attention the verse speaks of. The healing that follows is often slow. It might be a night of clearer sleep. It might be courage to make an apology the next day. Sometimes it looks like asking for help with an awkward task. Sometimes it is a change of habit. The key is that honest confession opens the route. It makes the next step possible. Confession also works when it is written. A short note placed in a drawer can become a prayer to be read later by another. A message that names a fault and asks for prayer can bring the same relief as speaking in a room. The method matters less than the honesty and the context of care. Choose a person who listens without a hurry to judge. Choose a quiet posture. The confession is not a ticket to shame. It is a key to treatment. Tonight, I invite a small practice for the hush that holds this hour. Sit with eyes closed if that helps. Breathe slowly 3 times. Think of one small failing from the day. Keep it concise. Use one word if that is easier. Do not spin the story. Do not relitigate what cannot be fixed this hour. Name the short truth and place it on the lap like a folded cloth. Now, imagine a companion who will take the cloth and hold it kindly. Picture hands that are steady. Picture a light that will allow the cloth to be seen and tended. If there is someone to whom such a truth can be said in the morning, plan that small sharing. If there is no one, imagine asking the larger care to receive it gently and to give you the courage to face what must come next. The act itself makes a small room inside where healing can begin. If fear comes about being known, remember the confession is not a demand to become perfect. It is an act of trust. It says, "Here is what I have done or failed to do. I cannot carry the weight of it alone. Will you help me hold it?" Community answers that question in many forms, sometimes with hands, sometimes with a phone call, sometimes with a quiet text that says, "I will keep this for you in prayer." The quietness that follows such shared honesty is often the first measure of God's attentiveness. It is not flashy. It is a hush that invites sleep. It steadies the chest enough to let rest come, for nights when worries crowd the mind. This passage offers a way to lower their volume, bring them into the light of another's attention, and ask for prayer that mentions the small, specific things. Before this part closes, try a short breathing shape. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Breathe out for 6. As the breath goes out, name one small fault silently. Picture placing it in open hands. Let the shoulders fall by a fraction. Stay there for a count or 2. Repeat once more if needed. The motion is not performance. It is a habit of honesty that trains the heart to be less alone. I read these words because I live in rooms like that, and because mercy often shows itself quietly. The healing that follows confession is not always immediate. It is gradual and kind. It grows when wounds are not hidden, but given space to receive care. The promise is simple, and tender faults confessed do not remain shapes of shame. They become places where gentle repair can happen. Now let the breath ease. If sleep comes, lead it. If wakefulness remains, keep the image of hands that hold spoken faults close. When morning arrives, consider a single step. Tell one trusted person what is hard, and ask for prayer that names the need. Keep the step small. Let the act be an opening rather than a judgment. I will stay with this hush a few moments longer. The lamp is low. The house listens. When the next part begins, the reading continues with the same soft care. For now, place one small folded truth into the palm of thought. Trust that attentive hands are ready to receive it. Rest in that quiet care until the breath becomes deep and sleep follows. I open the book with the same careful hand. The lamp keeps its low circle. My voice moves slowly, like the room breathes with me. Tonight, the page asks for a kind of work we do with others. It names forgiveness as a gentle duty. It asks us to forgive as we have been forgiven. The line feels like a small map for the heart. Forgiveness is not a sudden erasure. It is an unfastening. It loosens a grip that has grown tight with time. The text invites a practice. It asks for kindness and tender-heartedness. It asks for patience when the past presses close. The call is simple. The weight of it is not. I remember a night that taught me the shape of this calling. A friend and I had walked different paths for a while. A small thing turned large between us. Words were said that landed like stones. A silence grew where laughter used to sit. The distance had no sudden cause. It grew in slow steps. Resentment made small nests behind the ribs. We met one evening by a window that looks out over an empty street. Rain had made the glass soft. I hold a cup that has cooled. The friend sits opposite. hands folded. No dramatic speech begins. The air is careful. The thing to be said is not urgent in tone. It is urgent in truth. I start by naming the hurt. The word is short. It does not dress itself in a long argument. I do not rehearse what could be said later. I only say what sits in the chest. The voice in the room stays low. The friend listens without interruption. Listening is a quiet gift. It keeps the confessed thing from growing monstrous. Then a small thing moves. I let myself feel vulnerable. I do not shield the heart from the risk of being seen. The chest tightens. Breath shortens. Yet I continue. The act of naming is a soft cutting away of secrecy. It opens space for something else. Forgiveness does not arrive at once. It comes as a decision that the hurt will not be the final word. I choose to release the sharpness that I carry. The choice is not about forgetting. It is about not letting the past trap the present. I offer the hurt into hands larger than my own. I do not make a show. I simply place it where it can be held without burning me. The friend leans forward in a motion that is quiet. An apology is not long. It is honest and brief. No theatrical words. No excuses that hide. That honesty does a soft thing. It unravels a thread of mistrust. The voice that asks forgiveness is not pleading for absolution. It is stating a desire to mend. I forgive. The act is small. It might be a nod. It might be the release of a held breath. It might be a hand put briefly against a shoulder. Forgiveness is not a trophy. It is a practical letting go. It loosens the muscles of the jaw. It allows night to be less heavy. In that room, a slow peace follows. Not because the problem falls away, but because the chest does. The tightness does not vanish. It relaxes. The mind that had replayed the moment like a damaged record finds a new path. Memory keeps what happened. Memory no longer governs the room. The present breathes more freely. This work of forgiveness often asks vulnerability. To forgive, a person must first be honest about pain. To be honest, one must feel safe enough to speak. That is why trust matters. The friend and I create a small covenant of care in that hour. We agree to speak plainly and to listen without scoring points. The rule is simple. The aim is repair, not victory. Forgiveness asks also for grace toward the one who hurts. People carry things that make them act poorly. A short kindness can melt a build-up of cold. Mercy is not denial of the wrong. It recognizes the brokenness behind the act. When mercy is present, apology is easier. Healing begins in the small, plain words that follow. Et times. Forgiving is harder than keeping a wound. Holding anger can feel like control. Letting go feels risky. It may mean returning to a place that still stings. The choice to forgive feels like stepping into a thin boat. The water is not calm, yet the boat is steady enough. I row because staying on the shore feels worse. I practice a small ritual for nights when old things rise. I breathe long and name the hurt. Naming is not a way of resharpening the pain. It is a way of seeing it honestly. After that, I offer a short prayer. The prayer asks for the grace to let go and for the humility to seek reconciliation where it is possible. The prayer asks for courage to bear the cost when forgiveness asks for it. Sometimes forgiveness includes asking for help from a third presence, a mutual friend. Aquest pastor, a counselor, someone who can hold the space when emotions run high. That presence is steady and not rushed. They do not take sides. They keep the heart from lumping back into old blame. Their steadiness is a scaffold for fragile courage. There are nights when forgiving another is also forgiving oneself. I recall a time when a choice I made hurt someone dear. Regret sat heavy and would not yield. I practiced the same small acts. I named the error. I asked forgiveness of the person I had wronged. Then I sought the grace to release my own shame. Forgiving oneself is a quiet work. It asks for honesty and for a companion to hold the weight when self-forgiveness feels impossible. In the hours after forgiveness, the change is subtle. A room that earlier felt brittle warms. The laugh that returns is cautious at first. It gains strength. Small habits return shared coffee. Short messages. The ease of an inside joke. Trust rebuilds like a slow stitch. One honest act at a time. No rush. No facade. Forgiveness does not always mean restoring a relationship as it once was. Sometimes it rearranges it. Boundaries are needed. Saying no can be part of care. Forgiveness and safety can coexist. A person may forgive and also keep distance that protects both hearts. That balance is wisdom more than rule. When I read these words by the lamp, I feel the room's slow hush. The page asks to offer kindness and tender-heartedness to one another. It asks to be gentle with the wounds that make others act harshly. It calls for patience. The tone is not harsh. It is merciful. Try a simple practice with me now. Breathe in slowly. Let the breath fill the chest. Name a small hurt that lingers. Keep the word short. Picture the person who hurt you. See them as more than the moment of harm. Imagine them with a plain human face. Take the breath out and say silently, I release this to be held. Offer it to care rather than to anger. Hold the pause. Let the muscles of the jaw soften. If the wound is fresh or deep, do not force a full reconciliation tonight. Forgiveness is not a race. It is a path. Take a single small step. Maybe that step is a prayer. Maybe it is a message that says nothing more than, I am willing to try. Small acts become bridges. They are patient and steady. When a friend and I practiced this, the release felt like a cloth coming off a sunburn. It did not make the skin whole. It stopped the burning. The mind could think of other things. The room could hold more than the hurt. That is the quiet miracle of forgiving, as we have been forgiven. The mercy we receive becomes the pattern we follow. I read the book for you tonight, because these small acts matter. They make night gentler. They prepare the heart for rest. If forgiveness waits somewhere in the chest, consider bringing it out like a thin thread. Wind it slowly towards someone you trust. Let vulnerability guide the motion. Trust that mercy is not scarce. It is patient and wide. Before this part closes, breathe with me 3 slow times. Inhale, hold, exhale. As the out-breath softens, picture laying one sharp memory into open hands that can keep it. Ask for the grace to forgive, as you have been forgiven. Let the shoulders drop a little. Let the jaw relax. The lamp remains low. The room listens. Forgiveness is not a tidy end. It is a gentle work we return to when the next part begins. We will continue with a slow reading that holds more small practices. For now, rest with the quiet truth. Forgiving loosens the chest and opens the way back to gentle company. Let that thought keep watch until sleep arrives. I turn the page slowly. The lamp casts the same soft pool of light. My voice moves gently as I speak a phrase that settles the room. I read that Christ's peace should be the ruler inside. I do not parade words. I only hold the meaning like a small lantern. Letting peace rule feels like choosing a conductor for an orchestra. Each part of the life waits for a cue. The mind, the chest, the hands, each one listens. When peace takes the baton, the noise becomes music. Tension in the shoulders softens. The breath finds a steadier measure. The rooms inside the body line up like players who know when to enter and when to rest. Long ago I learned this, the quiet way. A week full of hurry pressed at the shoulders. An endless list of small demands kept arriving. Work required attention. A family need came at odd hours. Friends asked for help. The calendar filled with thin strips of time. At night, the mind would run tenantless. Thoughts moved from one worry to the next without pause. Sleep did not come easy. One evening, I sit down by the window where the streetlight throws a pale cross on the sill. My hands are tired. Eyes feel sand-heavy. The mind replays the list again like a record skipping. I do a small thing, not because it will fix everything, but because I need a place to begin. I read the line about letting peace rule. I do not study it. I say it slowly to myself. The words are plain. They are an invitation. I imagine peace as a small ruler placed across the center of the chest. It is not solid metal. It is warm wood. It fits the curve of the ribs. When it sits there, other things measure against it. Decisions do not vanish. Thoughts still come, but they find the ruler first. It asks whether the noise should be allowed to steer the evening. Mostly, the ruler suggests not. Its question is kind. Will you let this moment be measured by calm? I close my eyes. I breathe in slow counts. The inhale collects the busy thoughts like moths toward a lamp. The exhale lets them go, one by one, like leaves falling from a branch. With each breath, the ruler warms. Its présence is quiète. It does not shout. It simply sets a boundary. The chest loosens. The jaw softens. A strange, small harmony enters. Harmony feels like seeing different notes line up into a chord. The stomach, which had been knotted, relaxes enough to notice the steady of the breath. The hands, which had been ready for action, become still. A mild courage settles that is not loud. It is enough to let rest come in tiny pieces. I remember a time when this ruling peace does something real. A loved one has a hospital stay. The hours drag. The mind invents brutal futures. The body wants to rush and fix and negotiate. There is a point where action is impossible. Waiting is the only work left. Waiting strains at the muscles. It makes every minute feel longer. In that room, I sit with a small cup of tea gone cold. The fluorescent lights hum. Outside, a thin rain taps the window. The mind launches scenarios and then lashes itself with worry. I quiet the hands. I speak the phrase about allowing peace to rule. I do it not as theory, but as a petition, as a small action. The body listens, as if to a familiar voice. Slowly, something changes. The breath steadies down into a quieter rhythm. The chest expands without that old tightness. Thoughts still appear, but they move differently. They stop demanding to be followed. They become like birds seen through glass. They are present, but the space between them and the heart grows broader. The heart has chosen a governor. When peace rules, decisions find a softer tempo. Reactions do not leap like startled animals. There is room to think before answering. Words are given a lining of calm. Actions come from steadier hands. Even sorrow, which is not erased, carries itself differently. It is held as one piece of the room, not as the whole house. I practice a small ritual to help this ruling take hold. It is simple and plain. Place one hand over the heart. Make 3 slow breaths. With the first breath, imagine a pale light settling at the center of the chest. With the second, picture that light becoming a soft bar of wood placed across the ribs. With the third, feel the bar warm and steady. Let it measure every worry. Let it set the rhythm. This practice is not magic. It does not remove pain or erase a problem. It simply changes the place from which I live. The ruler teaches a new habit. After a time, the muscles learn how to fall into a slower pull. The mind learns that not every thought needs immediate action. The heart finds a steady beat to follow. There is a physical change that accompanies the inner ruling. The shoulders drop a fraction. The neck loses some of its work. The mouth is less tight. These shifts are small. They matter. The body is a faithful map. When its lines soften, the inner weather clears enough to see a horizon. Allowing peace to rule also brings a kind of harmony with others. When the heart is ruled by calm, responses to others lose their sharp edges. A small irritation does not release a defensiveness. A friend's clumsy phrase does not become a quarrel. Instead, there is room for grace. Conversations carry an extra measure of patience. Misunderstandings find more gentle repair. I keep the voice low as I share this because the night prefers softness. The act of letting peace rule is, for me, a nightly labor of gentleness. It is not a one-time victory. It is a choice made again and again. When the ruler slips away, I do not scold myself. I bring it back with the same slow movements. Breathe. Name. Place. Sometimes the ruler is not wood, but a quiet melody. I hum it without sound. It is a simple tune that returns the heart to center. The melody reminds the limbs how to be still. It teaches the mind how to measure worry by rhythm instead of volume. The room listens, and the chest follows. The song does not solve tomorrow's needs. It makes tonight softer. The scripture I read says the peace of Christ should rule. I do not make it an abstract idea. I treat it like a room we build together. Each small act is a plank. Each breath is a nail. Each memory of grace is a board that holds the floor. Over time, the room becomes a place where harmony can live. It becomes a house for mercy and for the quiet kinds of courage. If rest presses close now, let the ruler sit easy in the center. Feel how its presence changes the measure of the heartbeat. If wakefulness lingers, practice the small ritual again. Place a hand over the chest. Breathe 3 slow times. Name one worry with a single word. Picture the ruler taking it in and setting it in order. Let the mind step back and watch the movement. There is no hurried perfection here. The aim is small and patient. Allow peace to shape the night. Let it be the guide for how thoughts come and go. Let it be the judge that decides which anxieties may be carried into action and which may be held for later. Tonight I read for you before sleep. I place the thought of peace like a gentle ruler across my own chest as I read. In doing so, I ask that the same calm might enter your room. Imagine the ruler warm and steady. Let it measure the moment. Let the music it conducts stretch quietly through the night. When the next part begins, I will turn the page and keep the lamp low. The pace will not change. The tone will remain soft. For now, rest with the ruler in your chest. Let peace govern the small places inside. Let the harmony it brings be the last thing you hear before sleep. Sure, I read a line that keeps coming back to me. Grace is enough. The phrase sits like a small lantern in a quiet place. It does not try to solve everything at once. It simply promises a certain kind of help that arrives when my own strength runs thin. I remember a season when my hands felt empty. The work I loved required more than I had to give. Nights grew long. Decisions came thick and close. My voice grew hoarse from trying to say things I did not have the courage to live. In the bright hours I kept moving. In the dark hours I counted the ways I had failed to hold what mattered. One evening, something changes in a way I did not understand at first. I wake with a dry mouth and a soft ache behind the eyes. The day is crowded with small tasks. A plan that I had trusted unspools. I feel useless in the face of things that need tending. Instead of pushing harder, I sit very still. I breathe in slow and steady. I let the breath find the base of the lungs. The chest loosens a fraction. I do not try to fix the list in my head. I watch it instead. The thoughts are like loose papers on a floor. They shuffle. They do not need sweeping all at once. Then a quiet assurance comes. Not as a booming claim, but as a small hand on the shoulder of the heart. It does not make the work vanish. It does not promise instant repair. It simply says that I am cared for in my lack. The moment feels like warmth moving along a cracked ridge. Strength is not poured as a gallon into a dry bowl. It seeps in like tea into a small cup. I see a particular image from that night. A lamp in a window across the street burns without pressure. The lamp is not bright. It is steady. From where I sit, it looks small and trustworthy. I realize the light is enough for the next step. I do not need to blaze like the sun. I only need to be a lamp for what is near. Prayer in that hour is small. Not a long speech. A short confession. A request that is honest and plain. I say aloud that I am weak. I ask for what I cannot make. The asking is simple and direct. The answer does not come in a flood. It arrives in a change of posture. My shoulders stop bracing against a world I cannot lift alone. The grace I sense does something practical. It teaches a different kind of work. Where I had tried to muscle through, a gentle steadiness steps in. I feel guided toward choices that match the fuel I actually have. Tasks are pared down. Kindness becomes more important than performance. The small things get done well. The large things wait without shaming me. There is a curious clarity that follows. Weakness does not cancel usefulness. It reshapes it. My hands, which once wanted to carry everything, learn to hold one small thing at a time. The mind, which had wanted to fix the whole map, learns to read only the next line. That shift feels like mercy. It is exact and almost tender. I remember the relief of admitting inability. Saying it out loud to a trusted person makes the load lighter. I do not have to pretend. A companion's steady voice does not add to the weight. It rearranges it. Strength comes to me through another's hands and words, as well as through the quiet presence that answers when I pray. After that season, the phrase from the letter feels less theoretical. It is no longer a line to be memorized. It becomes a lived rule. I keep returning to it when fatigue returns. The reminder is plain when I am not enough. Another kind of power arrives. It is patient, respectful of the smallness, and careful with what is fragile. If this idea is new or feels strange, consider a simple practice with me. When the day presses hard, sit for a slow breath. Trace the edge of the worry in the mind without arguing. Speak a single sentence, I am weak. Help me. Let the words be small and true. Wait for the soft answer. It may come as a clearer next step. It may come as rest. Either way, the work begins to look different. Tonight I place that line by the bedside. I read it often in my head. It lets the hands relax enough for sleep to come in pieces. The promise of sufficient grace is not an instruction to do nothing. It is an invitation to receive help when doing becomes too much. That receiving is work of its own. It asks for humility and trust. It asks for a quiet acceptance of a hand that steadies. As I close this part of the reading, I breathe in that rule again. I do not demand immediate change. I let the thought warm the center of the chest. The body follows with a small loosening. The mind, still busy, is given a new rubric. Weakness becomes a place where strength can enter. I hold that image for a moment before moving on. Shi. Now I turn to the psalm that comforts like a cool hand. The words ask for trust in the night. The tone is calm and confident. It points to a different kind of rest, one that sinks into the bones. I sit and read the verses slowly. They speak of calling out and receiving light. They invite a gentle wakefulness that is free from fear. The psalm is not loud. It paints a room lit by a candle that does its work, without boasting. Pause with me and notice the breathing. Inhale 4 counts. Hold 2. Exhale 6. Let the rhythm become the frame for listening. The psalm asks for quiet trust. The breath makes space for that trust to arrive. One line of the psalm guides me answer when called. The voice in the night listens. It does not turn away from our thinness. The call is simple. Speak in honesty. The answer that follows is light for the inner dark, It is like a small dawn that follows a long night. The psalm also warns against anger. It asks for a patient heart. Night often sharpens resentments. It makes small slights loom. The counsel is plain. Do not let fury rule the dark hours. Instead, sleep in peace and keep a clear path for prayer in the morning. When anger cools, the next steps come more gently. A practical image from the text helps me. Picture a field at dusk. The last light lingers. Not brilliant, but kind. A shepherd calls the scattered sheep. At the sound they come. Not hurried, but sure. The psalm asks for that same steady coming. It asks that trust be like feet that move toward a familiar voice. There is also a short invitation to rejoice. Joy here is not a loud festival. It is a quiet knowing that life contains mercy. Even in fragile nights, small happiness can be found. A warm cup, a soft blanket, the memory of a kind word. These are small lights to count before sleep. Try a small practice that the psalm suggests. Think of one honest need. Say it softly into the dark. Then think of one small blessing. Let thanks soften the rest. These two movements, asking and thanking, shape the night into a place where hope can sit. The psalm comforts with images of safety. It paints a house where prayers are kept. It promises a calm response to honest hearts. There is no demand for perfection. There is only a refuge for the weary. I remember a quiet night when worry made the ribs tight. Saying a single short prayer eased the tightness. It was not dramatic. It was not an instant cure. It was a small removal of weight. Enough to make sleep possible. The psalm's tone matches that memory. It asks for simple actions that change the body slowly. As I read, "I keep my voice soft. The words fall like quiet rain. They do not try to fix the whole map of tomorrow. They only steady the path for now. Let the sound keep the mind company. Let the images rest behind the eyes. If sleep comes, lead it. The psalm is a good companion on the way. If wakefulness remains, return to the breathing and the small practice ask. Then thank. Picture the field at dusk and the shepherd's call. Let each inhalation be an answering step. Before I close this section, place a hand where the breath moves most true. Breathe slowly 3 times. With the first breath, name one need. With the second, give thanks for one small kindness. With the third, rest in the certainty that the night hears both. The psalm's promise is not a loud rescue. It is a quiet keeping. I will leave that promise with you as the room grows still. The words settle like a gentle blanket. Trust finds its place beside the pulse. Mercy sits close. Hope waits. Patient and steady. When the next reading begins, I will open the book again and continue in the same low voice. For now, breathe. Rest. Let the psalm's hush guide the first part of sleep. I close the psalm with a slow breath. The words dim into the room like the last thread of light. A soft hush rests on the pages. I stay here a moment, feeling the weight of the night settle and the quiet answer that follows. 6. One God as our refuge. Tonight I read a simple thought. God is a refuge. The phrase is not loud. It is like a small cave in a steep hill. Wind can rage outside. Inside is a steady warmth. The image asks nothing dramatic. It only asks to be used. Imagine a deep-rooted oak on a cold plain. Its roots go where hands cannot reach. A shelter grows beneath its branches. Rain falls. The tree does not promise to stop the weather. It promises a place to stand without being exposed to every gust. That is the kind of refuge I read about now. It is patient and close. It does not hurry. There is a night I keep in my pocket that fits the picture. It is not a great story. It is ordinary and true. Her job shift comes in a thin phone call. The paper says the role no longer exists. The rooms of the apartment feel empty for the span between dinner and sleep. The future looks folded into tight creases. I do not move to solve it right away. First, I go to the small window where a street lamp makes a soft square on the sill. The cup of tea is already gone to cool. The list of tasks sits like folded laundry. My hands want to make a plan that will fix everything at once. They cannot. The mind wants to hurry and rage. It will not help. So I do a different thing. I close my eyes and imagine a shelter. It is not far away. It is a calm place at the center of the chest. Breath goes in slow. Breath goes out slow. Each cycle is a small arrival. The heart is allowed to tilt toward a protectiveness that is larger than my own worry. The feeling is not wild or sudden. It is the sense of someone steady standing just behind. I put one worry into that shelter, as if laying a glove on a wooden bench. Name the worry in one short word. Say it inside. Then place it there. The glove does not vanish. It rests where hands will find it and tend it. A small relief follows. The shoulders lower by a fraction. The plan that will come tomorrow feels clearer because the chest is not pressed by all the weight at once. I remember then the image of a harbor that keeps small boats from breaking on the rocks. The refuge does not make the sea still. It simply keeps the vessel whole enough to be mended. That is how divine shelter behaves in these small nights. It holds without scolding. It keeps without consuming. If it helps. Place one hand over the place. Breath moves most true. Breathe slowly in 4 counts. Hold 2. Release in 6. With each out-breath. Imagine the small worry sliding from the hand into the shelter. Do this 3 times. The motion is not a clever trick. It is a practice of trust. The act teaches the muscles of the heart that some weight can be laid down and kept safe. When fear comes as a quiet ache at the base of the skull, do the same thing again. Name the thin, anxious thing. Picture it like a small pebble. Put it into the shelter. Feel the body obey the gentle command to rest. Let the chest find a little more room for air. There is a tenderness to this refuge. It notices the small details. It holds the tiny things that otherwise crowd the night. Notice how the thought of a secure place changes the tone of the mind. It does not erase the problem. It simply gives the heart a steady ground to stand on while morning's work is done. Romans 8:2-8. Trust in God's goodness. After the shelter comes another gentle promise. I turn to a line that says, in plain fashion, that unseen things can be drawn into a good beyond our grasp. The words do not demand explanation. They offer a way of seeing. It helps to picture a weaver at a loom. Threads run in many directions. Some threads are bright, some are dark. From above, the weaver sees the picture that will form. From below, the knotted mess looks random and cruel. Trust asks us to name weaver's hands without needing to know every knot. A memory fits this image. After the job news, the first weeks feel heavy and full of small refusals. Blanc sleep. Sleep arrive late. A friend invites a walk in a park that is half empty. And at first the walk feels like one more obligation, but a conversation drifts slow and kind. A new connection arrives, someone with a quiet opening to share small work together. From that odd meeting, a new routine forms. Meals become steadier. A part-time job appears that does not erase the past, but eases the present. It is not that everything was perfect. It is that small goods arrive in unexpected ways. When held together, they form a kind of pattern that was not obvious in the darkest hour. This is the gentle hope now read aloud. Broken edges can be woven into a larger good. The promise is not a guarantee of ease. It is an assurance that care can turn hard things into something that sustains. If a reader worries that this sounds too tidy, remember the loom again. The weaver can use even the darker threads, and the final tapestry may be gentler than the moment of despair. Trust is not a blind leap. It is a small practice of seeing that pieces can join. It begins by offering the broken things into hands that can hold them, while patterns form. Try a small night practice with this thought. Place one hand where the breath is easiest. Breathe in slowly. As the inhale fills the chest, name one small loss or disappointment. Let it be brief. As you breathe out, picture a larger hand, taking that small thing and placing it on a loom. See another thread, something small and good brought near. Let the image of the two threads crossing ask for patience rather than immediate solution. This practice trains the eye of the heart to notice how good and hard sit near each other. It teaches waiting that is not passive. Waiting turns the mind toward noticing small gifts that might have been missed if the chest had remained full of fear. There is room here for softness and for realism. The promise does not say that every wound will look beautiful. It says that nothing is wasted when held in a caring presence. The good that forms may be humble. It may be a steady friendship. It may be a restored rhythm. It may be a small courage to try again. These are the kinds of goods that arrive quietly and that matter in the slow art of living. Before this part closes, do the breathing one more time. Inhale a calm, hold for a beat, exhale, and place one named worry into the refuge. Imagine it in the hands that also hold small goods. Picture the weaver's fingers crossing the threads with patience. Feel the chest loosen a little. Let the shoulders drop. Let the jaw open. If sleep comes, allow it. Let the images guard the doorway of rest. If wakefulness remains, return to the slow breath and the shelter image. Repeat the simple motion of naming and offering. Keep the thought of quiet weaving nearby. Trust that small things can be gathered into a life that still holds goodness. I will stay here with the book a while. The lamp is low. The room is listening. When it is time to read again, I will open the pages with the same care. For now, let the shelter hold one small thing. Let the thought of patient weaving remain nearby. Rest in that gentle promise until the breath slows and sleep follows. I turn the page slowly. The lamp keeps its low circle. My voice moves with careful steps. Tonight, the line I hold is quiet, but strong. God works all things together for good. The thought rests like a small, steady stone in the palm. This is not a promise that every event will be pleasant. It is a promise that the hard threads can be woven into something that sustains. The language is gentle. It asks for a kind of patience that does not rush answers. It asks for a heart that will try to trust, even when the map is folded and confusing. I bring the memory of one season that taught me how that works in daily life. It is not a dramatic story. It is ordinary and slow. It begins with a plan that I believed in. The plan looked good on paper. It included a move, a new project, and a step that felt right. Preparations filled the weeks. Bags were packed with care. Friends promised help. Hoppers felt stead. Then the plan broke. A necessary permit did not arrive. A partner pulled away. A small but crucial detail collapsed into a tangle. The move did not happen. The project did not begin. For a while the world felt like a room with the lights turned off. The chest tightened. Questions crowded the mind. In the dark that followed, trust seemed fragile. The instinct was to argue with the facts, to replay the reasons, to prove that the decision had been right. That kind of arguing only sharpened the worry, so I tried another way. I set down the lists and sat with a single phrase: God works all things together for good. I did not pass it. I did not demand proof. I breathed into it like a small lamp. The first days were not sudden comfort. They were small adjustments. A friend invited a quiet walk. A neighbor left soup on the doorstep. Time opened like a slow throat. In the space that the plan had left, other things grew. A practice of listening took root. Conversations that I might have rushed through became longer and more plain. A new work began. Not on the scale I once imagined, but with a tension that fit what was present. There is a particular afternoon from that season I keep revisiting. The rain was thin. The street smelled of wet stone. A person I had hardly known sat across from me with hands folded around a cup. There was no grand revelation, only a slow, honest talk about smallness and need. In that exchange, a way to use the time emerged. It involved small acts of care, checking on an elderly neighbor, bringing extra bread to a family, staying a little longer when someone was lonely. Those acts did not erase the failure of the plan. They quietly reordered the heart. What looked like a closed door had become a hall of smaller rooms. This is the shape of the promise, I read aloud now. It does not always turn loss into triumph in a single sweep. It rearranges attention. It softens a hard place in the chest, so hands can be steady again. Goodness often appears as useful things, steadier friendships, clearer priorities, a slower pace that allows mercy to do its quiet work. The text I read beside that lamp next is a small instruction from Proverbs. It asks to trust with the whole heart and not to lean on one's own understanding. It says to acknowledge the Lord in every way, and that the path will be made straight. I do not treat the verse as a rule to be forced. I read it as a posture to try on. Trusting with the heart feels different from thinking through every angle. The heart is a small room of feeling. To trust, it means to let that room be tender rather than locked. It does not mean foolish confidence. It means a decision to place weight on a hand steadier than my own. It is a quiet surrender of the need to control every detail. There was a night in that season when this posture mattered. Decisions were necessary. Money was thin. An answer was required. The mind wanted charts and arguments. The heart wanted peace. I sat with the proverb, and a single question, which step shows trust? The answer that came was not clever. It was a small obedience. It was the choice to listen for what seemed kind and prudent, rather than to chase every anxious possibility. So the next morning the choice made was simple. A small task was accepted that fit current strength. A larger ambition was put on pause. A person who needed a ride was offered one. Over time, the small step shaped a path that satisfied the weight of the day. The straightness promised by the verse did not mean a smooth road. It meant a route where the feet found purchase, because decisions were rooted in trust rather than frantic control. Trust with the heart can be practiced in small ways tonight. Place a hand where the breath feels most true. Breathe in slowly. Let the chest fill. At the top of the inhale, name one worry with a single word. Keep it small. As you breathe out, offer that word to the larger care. Imagine the worry sliding into steady hands. Do this 2 more times. Each repetition is not about perfect faith. It is about forming a habit of returning to trust when fear shows itself. The memory I hold of that season includes daily small rituals. A morning prayer of simple thanks. A note left for someone who might need it. A short walk that cleared the mind. These acts did not fix everything. They rearranged what I could carry. They allowed imagination to see how different pieces might join. There is a tenderness to how good arrives. It often comes hidden in small, neighborly things. A shared cup of coffee, a neighbor's knock to say, "I have extra bread," a late-night phone call that says, "I am awake if you need to talk." The promise that all things work together often shows in this slow stitching. It is not speedy. It is patient and careful. When the heart leans into trust, it learns to notice these small mercies. They become evidence for the promise, not in the way of proof, but as steady signs. A life shaped by such signs grows a different kind of courage. It is the courage to accept less dramatic rewards. It is the courage to stay when the applause is small or absent. A question may come, what about the deepest losses? This story does not pretend that all pain makes easy sense. Grief and sorrow leave marks. Trusting with the heart does not erase them. It invites presence with them. It trains the heart to accept that good can still be woven through the broken places. The weaving can be slow. It can be quiet. It can be tender before sleep. Try a small exercise of trust. Close the eyes if that helps. Breathe slowly 3 times. With the first breath, imagine placing a small worry on a wooden bench beside you. With the second, see a hand larger than yours, take it gently. With the third, say quietly a short phrase, I trust in what holds me. It does not need flourish or proof. Let the words be a hinge. Let the breath be the motion that opens the hinge. There is a simple rule I learned then. When choices press, ask, does this step come from a heart leaning on its own strength, or from a heart that rests in a steadier care? If the former, pause. If the latter, proceed with quiet courage. The proverb we read asks for such gentleness. Do not rely solely on what you can see. Let the heart be guided by a steady way beyond immediate sight. The season ended not with a tidy triumph, but with a house fuller in different ways. The plan that failed remained a closed door. The life that followed contained other doors that opened softly. The work that filled days was quieter and kinder. Friendships deepened. Small services became the measure of meaning. The good that came was humble and enough. Now, as the room grows still and the breath lengthens, hold that thought for a few slow seconds. Let the hand rest on the chest where trusting begins. Feel the warmth there. Breathe in calm. Breathe out worry. Imagine. Once more. A steady hand, taking what is too heavy. Trust, practiced in small acts, changes how a person moves through the dark. When the next section begins, I will turn the page and read slowly again. The lamp will remain low. The pace will stay gentle. For now, keep the heart soft. Let the memory rest. Let the proverb guide the night. Trust with the heart. Do not depend on understanding alone, and acknowledge the presence that makes paths clearer. Rest in that simple way. Let sleep come without hurry. Shazan. I breathe in slowly and settle my voice to a low, steady pitch. The lamp throws a soft circle of light. The room listens. Tonight I hold a single idea, close trust. Even when the map is unclear, I do not mean a sudden faith that erases trouble. I mean a quiet willingness to let a larger care guide the next step when my own sight is short. The pages I read ask the heart not to lean only on the understanding it has. That instruction is plain and gentle. It does not scold. It opens a space. The mind often wants to solve everything at once. The heart is rarely that brave. Trust asks for a small motion, a letting go, so the hands have room to receive help. Imagine a narrow path cut through fog. The next step is visible. The step after that is not. Walking feels risky. Yet if one keeps the gaze on the footfall ahead, the path slowly becomes known. Trust works like that. It asks for steady steps rather than perfect sight. The rhythm matters more than the chart. I share a memory now, because real moments help shape this practice. It is not dramatic. It is quiet and slow. Some years ago, an elder relative needed more help than our house could safely give. The choice to move her into a care place felt like surrender. It felt like failure. Nights were full of lists and questions. Hands searched for solutions. Worry sat like a small stone just under the sternum. The decision to look for help was practical. It had to be. But the heart wanted assurance. Before it would rest, I prayed in small, plain sentences. I did not demand an answer like a lightning flash. I asked for guidance that would make room for peace. The asking felt like handing over a thin, worn blanket. I did not know if it would be held, but I offered it anyway. A day came when I visited a quiet facility. The light in the rooms was low and kind. Staff moved with an unhurried care that did not try to impress. A small garden ran along the back. I watched how hands folded a shawl across an elderly lap. Attention was steady. It did not erase the loss of independence. It simply met the need without hurry. I remember standing under soft sky in the garden after the meeting. The chest that had been braced for weeks eased by a degree that surprised me. It was not a moment of triumph. It felt more like a small socket closing around a shape that fit. The peace did not erase the sorrow of change. It did not remove practical concerns, but it made space in the mind to think clearly and in the heart to breathe without tightness. That peace arrived not because everything was solved. It came because a choice had been made from a place that was allowed to trust. I had stopped arguing with every fear and simply offered them up. One at a time, the act of releasing made the hands calmer. The mind could sort the steps that actually mattered. The relief was small and real. It became an anchor for the nights that followed. Here is what that taught me. Trust is not a leap into thin air. It is a decision to stop leaning on the narrow explanations the mind invents. It is a posture that lets tenderness show where the chest has been clamped. When we lean in that way, unexpected peace can arrive like a quiet friend who sits down without a fuss. The book asks us to choose such trust as a regular practice. It pairs trust with simple acts. One is naming a worry in a single word. Another is offering one small thanks for what was kind that day. These gestures reorient the heart. They teach tiny muscles how to let go. If you are awake, now, try a small movement with me. Place one hand over the place your breath moves most true. Breathe in slowly for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Breathe out for 6. On the in-breath, feel the name of one small worry. Keep it short. On the out-breath, imagine setting that worry into open palms that are steady and sure. Add a small thanks for something gentle in the day. Repeat this 3 times. Do not expect a sudden calm. Expect a small change. Notice how the shoulders drop. Notice how the jaw loosens a fraction. Notice the space that opens behind the ribs. If another worry arrives, repeat the motion. Each repetition is not a failure. It is practice. There is a tenderness to trusting that I often forget. Trust does not make me less careful. It simply moves the center of effort. When the chest is not carrying every sharp thing, hands can tend the nearest work with more gentleness. Decisions come from steadier places. Mercy becomes visible in small actions. I also learned that trust often invites help that I would not have planned. The people who stepped in to assist my relative were not the ones I had first expected. A neighbor offered rides. A sister called long conversations that ended in laughter. Someone from a local group brought homemade soup without announcement. These small mercies appeared because the heart had space to notice them. When worry tightens, kindness often passes by unseen. This way of living is not a cure-all. Many nights require more than one practice. Some wounds take time. Some decisions need careful labor, but the act of leaning into a larger care changes the angle of how the work is done. It does not promise ease, but it promises company. That company makes the next step possible. I keep the voice low as I say this, because the night prefers softness. The story is shared, not as proof, but as an invitation. Borrow the memory for the moment when your chest feels heavy. Use the breath practice. Name one small fear. Offer one small thanks. Let the trust be a hinge that opens the palm. Before this part ends, sit with a brief intention. Choose one small thing to hand over tonight. It might be a worry about a tomorrow call. It might be a memory that wakes you. Hold it in the mind like a pebble. Place it in imagined hands that are steady and warm. Let the breath carry it there. When the next section begins, I will turn the page and read a verse that speaks of a peace that comes at all times. I will speak it gently and let it rest in the room like a low lamp. For now, breathe again. Slowly, feel how trust softens the chest. Rest with the small peace that can come when the heart stops leaning only on its own side. Let that peace keep watch as sleep moves nearer. I speak softly, as always. I read the Bible for you before sleep. The room breathes with the words. Tonight the thought is simple. The assurance of peace from the Lord is real, steady, and present even when the world presses hard. If I were to rate that assurance, I do so without flourish. On a scale that measures steadiness rather than brightness, I place it at the highest point, not because every night is easy, not because trouble shrinks at once, because the peace I name holds in ways other things cannot. It steadies the hands. It slows the thoughts. It makes room where there was none before. The rating is not about proof. It is about experience. It is about the feeling in the chest when trust arrives and does not leave. Peace from the Lord is not a quick fix. It is not a flashy answer. It is a presence like a wide, low bench by a path. You sit. The bench holds. The wind still moves. The sky shifts. But the bench keeps its promise to bear weight. That is how I mark the assurance. It is reliable enough to be trusted for the next step, whatever that step may be. There is a moment I keep returning to. I bring it now because it shows not only a flicker of peace, but a peace that covers many parts of a person at once. The scene is ordinary and quiet. That is part of what makes it gentle. It is late autumn. I drive a long road home after a difficult goodbye. Plans have fallen apart over months. The air in the car tastes of cold coffee. Streetlights pass like distant thoughts. Conversation with a friend still hums in the ears. Quiet and unresolved. The road is almost empty. A small panel light begins to blink on the dash. The engine coughs. Then it stops. The car coasts to a slow halt on the shoulder. Night fills the windows like a soft cloth. At first, the chest tightens in the expected way. The mind lists what to do, then repeats the worst-case versions, alone and small. The body wants to hurry with worry. Hands fumble for a phone. Reception is thin. The breath shortens. The usual reactions arrive, hurry, planning, fretting. They make the night narrower. Then something shifts. It does not arrive as a thunderclap. It comes as a small, steadying breath from somewhere else. I do not make it happen. It simply meets me. A close hand settles at the base of the ribs inside. The muscles that have been braced drop by a few degrees. The jaw loosens. A single thought forms and remains. You are not alone in this. That thought is not a clever solution. It is a fact felt in the body. It changes how the next decisions are made. Instead of flailing between actions, a patient clarity appears. One small step at a time. Check the roadside. Put on a jacket. Walk a short way to a lighted station. Ask for help with a plain sentence. The mind, which had been a storm, becomes a row of small, useful tasks. What feels comprehensive in that moment is how peace touches different places at once. The head stops inventing endless scenarios. The chest unclenches enough to let the lungs expand. The hands, once tense for planning, become calm enough to act. Memory shifts. Instead of replaying every regret, it allows room for one small, grateful thought. A friend's hand earlier in the day. A warm drink that settled the stomach for a while. The fact that the night is clear enough to see stars beyond the streetlights. The small list does not remove the difficulty. It becomes ballast. There is also a tenderness in the way comfort arrives. It is not prideful. It does not demand performance. It simply sits down beside the fear and keeps it company. That company is enough. It is enough to make the night workable. It is enough to let sleep come in pieces later. It is enough to let the person reach out for help without panic. I describe this because the kind of peace I read about in the pages is not theoretical. It lands where the body lives. It steadies the breath. It changes the angle of thought so that the next move can be taken with less shaking in the hands. That practical change is what I mean by rating the assurance high. It is not a promise of trouble-free days. It is a promise of presence that carries through trouble. In the car that night, I take a few slow breaths. The practice is simple and plain. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold 2. Breathe out for 6. The rhythm is not magic. It is an invitation for the body to listen. When the heart says, it is held, each exhale loosens a notch of tension. Each inhale brings the small clarity that organizes the next task. Try this now. If it helps, let the breath be a small metronome. I sit with the memory for a little while longer, because some people listening may never have felt such a peace so plainly. That is okay. Some recognize it as a soft tide. Others feel only the outline. The memory is an offering, not a test. If the moment is absent, imagine a hand that watches the chest. Imagine that hand stays without hurry. Hold that image like a lantern. The assurance of peace also has limits that teach tenderness. It does not force solutions. It does not erase consequences. It gives enough steadiness to face what must be faced. Sometimes the next day brings hard work. Sometimes grief continues. The peace I describe offers a posture of endurance that does not demand immediate bravery. It is a patient companion that allows healing to begin without hysteria. Another part of this peace is its persistence. Often it returns in small repetitions. One night of calm does not guarantee a life without trouble, but when the heart learns that the gentle presence can return, a new habit grows. The hands learn how to offer burdens with a single motion. The mind learns to name a worry and place it in a secure palm. Those little motions become a scaffold. Over time, the scaffold supports clearer choices and kinder work. There is a way to test the assurance without striving notice, how the body responds when you imagine being held. If the breath lengthens, if the shoulders drop, if a small clarity arrives, then the peace is touching more than thought. It is attending to the whole person. That is why the assurance rates highly for me. It is holistic. It holds mind, body, and heart. I keep the tone quiet because the night prefers softness. The memory does not need dramatic details. Its strength is in its calm. If your mind wants to argue or to compare, return to the simple acts. Breathe slowly. Name one worry with a single word. Place it into imagined open hands. Offer one small thanks for what was kind in the day. These are not clever prayers. They are plain movements that remind the heart that it is not asked to hold everything alone. Tonight, before the next reading, take one more slow breath with me. Feel the ribs lift. Let the out-breath be long and easy. Picture the night that once felt too sharp being held in waiting hands. Imagine that the same steady presence that met me in the car meets you now. Let the body accept that steadiness for a few moments. Rest in the small fact that peace is present and patient. When the next part begins, I will read Psalm 9:4-19 and lean into the comfort it whispers. We will linger over words that name how many cares can shrink beneath calm. For now, hold the memory as a small proof peace can be comprehensive. It can touch the breath, the thoughts, and the hands all at once. Let that truth be your anchor until the voice returns. I keep the lamp low. My voice is small. Tonight I read for you before sleep. The book I hold leans toward comfort. It does not hurry. It names what the heart feels when worry sits heavy. Anxiety is a real thing. It presses like a heavy cloak across the shoulders. It crowds the chest. It writes small, urgent scripts across the mind. The body answers with quick breath and tight jaw. The night can make the noise louder. The dark feels like an echo chamber. Thoughts multiply until the mind feels full. I do not pretend anxiety is only in the head. It is in the body first. Muscles brace without asking. The stomach knots. Breathing shortens. The hands find themselves busy for no reason. When I read these words here, I point at the places where that pressure lives. Naming them helps. The act of seeing them in plain language makes them less mysterious. There is a memory I bring to you now. It is quiet and simple. The evening is small, and the rain taps the window in a steady measure. A deadline sits tomorrow like a low fog. Worry sharpens thoughts into small, repeating motions. The chest feels as if it carries a stone. I used to push through nights like that by sheer force. It never ended well. The mind unravels at a harder speed. Sleep retreats. That night, I try another route. I open the book and let the sentences fall slowly. I do not try to argue. I do not try to fix the whole list at once. I listen. A presence arrives in the way that presence often comes soft and patient. Not a loud answer. Not a soon solution. It feels like a hand placed at the center of the back. The muscles behind the ribs uncoil a fraction. The breath lengthens by a few degrees. The stone in the chest does not disappear, but it shifts. It sits in a steadier place. I remember thinking then that tenderness is most useful when it is small. It does not demand immediate transformation. It gives space for the heart to breathe. The comfort that touches the night is not a secret formula. It is an offered steadiness. It arrives in a warmth I cannot measure, but I can feel. Proverbs tells us something that sounds like what I experienced. It says anxieties weigh down the heart. It pairs that notice with a short, kind counter-movement. A gentle word or a small comfort can cheer the spirit. The proverb does not minimize worry. It names the weight. Then it points to something soft that lightens the load. I sit with that image now. Anxiety has weight. A kind word as a hand that lifts. The first part of the change is to notice the heaviness. It helps to be honest with the body. Place a hand where the breath rises. Feel the tight place. Name it in one small word. Do not argue with the reality of the feeling. Speak it gently inside. Tired. Afraid. Rushed. Lonely. Once the burden is named, the next act is to offer it, not to hide it, not to wear it as proof of endurance, to place it somewhere safe. Imagine a wooden table near the bedside. Lay one worry there. See its shape. Let it sit. The motion of setting it down changes the posture of the shoulders. The breath finds a fraction of freedom when the stone in my chest shifts. I remember the steady hands that met me. They do not silence the storm. They keep watch. The memory is a soft thing to borrow. If you are listening, borrow it now. Picture a hand that rests gently on the place behind the ribs. Feel the little release of muscle. Let the jaw soften. I read for you pieces of scripture that do not fight the honest shapes of the night. They sit with the feelings. They say, your worry is seen. They add, someone carries it with you. The presence I describe is quiet. It does not shout out remedies. It offers steady company and hands that hold. Try a small practice with me. Keep your breathing measured. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. With each out-breath, imagine a small pebble leaving the chest and resting on the table beside you. Name each pebble with a single word. Do this 3 times. The motion is not a magic trick. It is a physical way to let the mind learn a new movement. There is another memory that lingers. It comes from a night when a worry felt big enough to fill the room. The kind of worry that tightens the throat and makes the fingers numb. I go to the window and watch a single star. The star is steady, in spite of the dark. I whisper a short phrase of thanks for one small kindness from the day. A simple thing. A warm cup of tea. A friend's brief message. A moment of quiet becomes the pebble that balances the scale. Proverb suggests that such small acts matter. A kind word, a gentle thank you, a quiet sharing, these do not erase the weight by themselves. They change the angle from which the heart bears it. A single small light counters the wider darkness. The mind notices that other things exist beyond the burden. I have learned also that anxiety often multiplies in secret. It breeds in the quiet solutions the mind invents. When I say a worry aloud, it often becomes smaller. Speak it softly. If this hour allows, say it to the hush. Hand it to the larger care you imagine. You do not have to solve it tonight. Give the night permission to hold it. There is no shame in needing company. The book we read asks for sharing. It names the truth that burdens lighten when spoken to another. If there is a person who listens in your life, consider one small step tomorrow. Say a concise sentence about what weighs on you. Ask simply for prayer or for a brief hand. The motion will not always change the circumstance. It will change the way you carry it. When the relief is small, be grateful for the smallness. The night does not always give grand healing. It often hands out quiet stitches. Those stitches matter. They steady the trembling places. They reshape the way the body moves in the dark. If fear is loud tonight, do not match it sound for sound. Meet it with a steady rhythm instead. The breath is that rhythm. The practice is to return to it. Every time the mind rushes, come back to the count in 4. Hold 2. Out 6. Each return is an act of trust. Each small pause invites a presence to come near. Ask for consolation as you might call to a steady friend. You do not need elaborate language. A short, honest sentence will do. The presence that comforts is not impressed by eloquence. It is moved by sincerity. Let your asking be simple. Let the voice be plain. I keep my tone low, because the night listens for softness. The images I offer are plain a table, a pebble, a hand. They are easy to hold in the dark. Use them as tools. When anxiety presses in, place a pebble on the table. Name it. Hand it over. Wait a moment. Notice the shift, however small. There will be nights when the stone seems too large to move. On those nights, invite only one small act. Lay down one breath. Put one pebble on the table. Stay with the simple truth that a single small step can change the arc of an hour. Courage grows in pieces that way. I remind myself often of the tenderness that has found me in hard hours. It is not a flashy thing. It is a soft closeness that steadies the hands and loosens the jaw. Remembering that tenderness is a practice, it trains the heart to expect care. It helps the next night feel less like a battlement and more like a room with a lamp. Before this part closes, take one more deliberate breath with me. Inhale slowly and name one small worry. Hold the breath and picture a hand that is patient and sure. Exhale and place the worry in that hand. Feel the shoulders lower a little. Rest in the soft change. I will stay with this hush a little longer. When the next reading begins, we will turn to more simple phrases. We will let the pages offer their quiet guidance again. For now, keep the table near. Keep a pebble in mind. Remember that anxieties do weigh the heart, but a small, kind word and a steady presence can cheer it. Let that memory keep watch as sleep comes. I keep the lamp low and let the room breathe with me. A soft sound of pages turning fills the hush. Tonight, I think about a small thing that holds great weight, a kind word. The living world expects grand gestures, yet many evenings show otherwise. A single sentence, gently placed, can steady a chest like a hand on a back. It can change the way the night holds. A person. I read this book for you before sleep. My voice moves slowly, so the meaning can settle. The memory I bring is small and quiet. It fits into the curve of the night. It is the kind of memory that stills me when worry presses. There is a time I keep returning to. The season is thin with worry. Tasks pile like wet leaves at the doorstep. A decision goes wrong. Plans unravel in small, ordinary ways. The heart feels raw. Nights feel long because the mind has nothing kinder to offer itself. The body learns to brace. The jaw grows set. The breath shortens without asking. On one particular evening, the weather is grey and the apartment smells of tea gone cold. A letter lies unread on the kitchen table. Its edges curl like a leaf. It tells of disappointment. Not a dramatic ruin, just a quiet closing of a door I had expected to open. The hands do the work of folding paper and setting it aside. The mind begins its litany of why things always fail. Tears come without show. They are private. They do not clamor for attention. The silence around them seems to swell. At that low point, someone comes by, not with a solution, not with a plan, not with a long sermon of how to be brave. A neighbor pauses at the doorway and kneels like someone lowering a small thing into a safe place. There is no speech to quote, only the sense of hearing a truth turned into a warm, plain voice. The tone is steady. It is not dramatic. It simply names a care and holds it gently. The effect is immediate in a way that feels almost physical. The shoulders shift a degree that matters. The chest ceases its tight work for a moment and lets one deeper breath arrive. The memory of fear does not vanish. It becomes a manageable thing on the table instead of a storm holed up under the ribs. The small kindness does not erase the trouble. It rearranges its space. That rearrangement is mercy. It opens a narrow path toward rest. That night the word I hear is not a set of instructions. It is a small lamp placed near the bed of worry. It lights the next step. It does not pretend to solve the month or the year. It makes the hours softer. The hands I hold on to then are human hands. The promise in the word is human care. It remembers that a person who is weary needs to be seen and not carried as a problem to be fixed at once. This kind of comfort has a habit of returning in strange forms. Once it lives in the chest, it calls forth echoes later. A written note from someone who says they remember that day. A brief message left on an answering machine that carries the same tone. The memory of the small voice sits like a warm coin in the pocket. On colder nights, it is enough to place a hand there and feel a familiar warmth. I often wonder why a kind word can have such power. Perhaps it meets something that pride cannot. It meets vulnerability with respect. It does not lecture. It does not demand immediate courage. It witnesses what is broken and says, quietly, I am here. That witness matters more than any attempted fix. Mercy is not always action. Sometimes it is the permission to be human in company. In the years since that evening, kindness has been both given and received in small exchanges. A clerk who notices tired eyes and speaks an ordinary phrase. A friend who understands silence and sits without filling it. A passage read from the Bible that lands like a warm hand on the part that hurts. The Scripture is often the place where such words meet what the heart needs. It does not always say exactly what the situation asks for. It says what the soul does not know how to say to itself. The word I was given that night makes me careful about the words I use later. Language is not a light thing. A sentence said lightly can make a room safer. A phrase offered with tenderness can change the shape of a long day. For listeners who are awake now, consider this a small invitation. Hold a phrase in mind that can be offered to yourself when the night grows hungry for worry. It need not be clever. Keep it plain. Make it a short, steady truth that sits well on the tongue. Practical things help the heart learn how to receive such words. Keep a small card by the bed that names one gentle truth. Write a single line, short and kind. Tuck it under a pillow or slide it beneath a cup. When the night presses, reach for it. Let the eyes read the phrase slowly, as if the letters themselves are hands smoothing a brow. The motion teaches trust in very small steps. There are nights when the kind word comes from God's pages. The words in this book have that way about them. They do not demand high theory. They speak to the ordinary. A phrase about care. A line about watching the sparrows. A psalm that names the heart's cry and offers a hush in return. When those lines fall into the ear at the right place, they ring like that neighbor's steady voice. That is why I read these pages for you tonight. They are not polished arguments. They are bedside things, meant to soothe the limbic rush of fear. I do not mean to make light of the more difficult kinds of sorrow. Some nights carry deep loss and long grief that do not bow to a single kind sentence. Those nights ask for longer care, for presence that returns again and again. Even then, small words matter. They are the stitches in a slow cloth of healing. When grief is large, the neighbor's simple tone is not a cure. It is a beginning. It is a hand that does not let go. There is a curious practice I find helpful. When a kind word has once been given, I revisit it, not to cling to memory in a way that avoids the present, rather to let the memory be a map for how to accept help. Now, I close my eyes and remember the posture of the speaker. I recall the warmth in the voice. I let the chest respond. The body remembers how it felt to be held long enough to let a deeper breath return. That remembering trains the muscles of trust. Tonight, as I read, I place that small story beside the passages that name peace. The two belong together. A kind word is often the first form of a larger peace. Peace does not always arrive with fireworks. It comes quietly, in syllables that fit beside the tears. It comes in hands that will not let the person collapse under the burden of being alone. Before I close this part, there is a short habit to try. Think of one small kindness you received in a hard season. Bring its image to mind. Notice what warmed first, the tone, the gesture, or the plain presence. Let that warmth rest in the chest for a few slow counts. Breathe with it. Keep the rhythm soft. Do not demand a sudden change. Let the memory be a lamp for a minute. Keep it by you, like a coin in a pocket. When the next reading begins, I will turn to a verse that offers a promise of peace. That promise is of a peace Jesus gives. It is a peace that is not the world's kind. It differs from the brief comforts of human friends, yet it joins with them. A neighbor's steady voice and Christ's peace both aim to steady a person's feet on the next step. They overlap like two hands holding the same small parcel. For now, rest with the knowledge that a kind word matters. Keep a small phrase ready. Let the memory of tenderness warm the place where worry presses. Sleep if it comes. If wakefulness stays, return to the image of that voice that steadied a night. Let it be the first gentle proof that you are not alone. In a little while I will read the verse about the gift of peace. We will sit with it slowly and let it sit with the chest where rest begins. I settle the book on my lap. The lamp spreads a low warmth. I read for you tonight. My voice moves with the slow care of someone who knows night needs room. The passage I keep near now speaks of a quiet peace that finds the unsettled. It does not thunder in. It comes like the hush after a storm. I do not force the words. I let them fall soft. The ear receives, and the body follows. There is a memory that fits this teaching. It is not dramatic. It is small and stubborn in the way ordinary mercy can be. It happens on an otherwise ordinary evening when the city feels too loud. The apartment is up 3 flights. The heater ticks in a low, steady way. Outside, horns and distant voices blur into a single, patient hum. I return home with short temper and tired hands. The day has been long with decisions that make the chest ache. A small argument with someone who matters sits like a hot coal behind the ribs. The mind won't quit replaying the moment. It rewinds and speeds and pulls at the edges of patience until the whole body feels stretched thin. I place my keys on the table and do not try to solve anything. The book is within reach. I open a clean page and read not to prove anything but to listen. The words tell of peace that is given. They do not demand performance. They are plain and available. I stand by the window and look toward the patch of sky above the rooftops. A plane traces a slow white line. The city lights are small and steady. I breathe slowly, not to outrun the thoughts, but to notice them in a way that honors their shape. The breath is a tool, not a cure. Then the peace comes. Not as an answer to the argument, but as a companion to the aching. It rests like a cool hand on the heart's hot place. The tension eases by a small degree. The jaw unclenches. The tendency to replay the sharpest lines of the conflict softens. I do not try to name how it arrives. It is a felt thing. The chest loosens enough so the mind can see more than one thing at once. The memory of the argument does not fall away. It becomes a smaller object in a larger room. That change makes room for thought and for a different posture toward the other person. In that unhurried hour, a simple image sits with me. I imagine the disagreement as a small folded paper boat. It is not large. It does not hold the sea. It is only a thin boat on a wide table. I lift it, not to throw it away, but to set it beside a lamp where it will not be crushed. The act is one of careful placement. It is enough. Peace. In that moment is a steadying rather than a triumph. It steadies the hands so they can choose the right next step. It keeps the mind from turning every stray thought into a crisis. That steadiness lets sleep come in parts. It lets the heart accept the next morning with less dread. I speak of this small scene because peace often acts this way. It calms the nervous muscles before it rearranges the night's plans. It does not erase responsibility. It allows responsibility to be taken with clearer hands. There is a brief practice I used then. It is simple and suited for a late hour. Place the palms on the knees. Keep the posture steady. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for a count. Exhale for 6. With each cycle, let the shoulders drop. With each drop, imagine a single tone of judgment lifting. Do not chase the whole catalogue of wrongs. Let a single choice rest for a while. In the quiet that follows, I try another small action. I name one thing that aches not to argue, not to fix, but to be honest. A single word is enough. I place that word into my hands, mentally. I imagine the hands that watch hold it with care. The image is not ornate. It is a plain holding, like setting a warm cup on a saucer. The practice does not always bring sudden clarity. Some nights require more repetition. Often I do the breathing 3 or 4 times. Each repetition is a tiny deposit of calm. The mind learns a pattern. The body remembers how to slacken. Even if the worry returns, when peace touches the heart, it often brings a second gift patience toward myself. I stop hounding the self for not being braver. I hear a quieter voice that permits small failings. Mercy sits beside the memory like a person who keeps watch. It does not demand immediate repair. It only makes space for slow mending. Once the chest finds this steadiness, practical choices feel less urgent in a panicked way. A phone call that seemed necessary at once can wait until the morning. A long email can be drafted without the tremor of midnight worry. The work that must be done tomorrow can be approached with clearer hands. There is also a tenderness in how this peace reaches outward. When the heart is steadied, responding to the person who was hurt becomes easier. Words chosen from a calmer place do not cut as sharp. A softer tone asks for understanding rather than insisting on victory. The result is an approach that can heal a little at a time. I remember the small steps that followed that night. A note written the next morning, plain and brief. A cup of coffee offered without pretense. A slow conversation later in the week that did not try to fix everything at once. The repair was slow. It was real. It began because the night had made room for restful thought. I read these lines aloud because they are not sermons. They are bedside practices. They are the kind of instructions one can use when the lungs feel tight and the mind is loud. Over time, the practices knit themselves into a habit. Name one thing. Place it in watched hands. Breathe slowly. Respond from steadiness rather than panic. If you are awake and the chest feels full, try the small movement now. Place one palm on the place where breath is most noticeable. Breathe in slowly. As the lungs fill, feel the rib cage move as you breathe out. Let a single heavy thought slide toward the opened palm of your imagination. Hold it there for a moment. Feel the muscles slacken a little. Repeat once more. Do not demand a miracle. Accept the small easing. Sometimes that easing is enough to let sleep arrive. Sometimes it gives only a quiet of thought long enough to rest the eyes. Either result is a mercy. There is a time to linger in this kind of hush. There is also a time to move toward a fuller surrender. A next step is to offer the day's remaining burdens into a larger care. That offering is gentle and steady. It looks like closing a hand around the last knot and trusting someone else to finish the weaving. Before I turn the page to the final part, I invite a small intention. Think of one thing that you could let go of tonight. Not everything. One thing. Keep it small and specific. Picture that thing resting in hands that do not tire. Feel the chest respond. Let the shoulders drop a fraction. Keep breathing. I will sit with the lamp a little longer. The pages lie open. When the next section begins, I will read a short conclusion that asks us to place today's final worries into God's care and to receive rest in a way that is tender and whole. For now, hold the small easing in the ribs. Let that quiet be the hinge that opens towards sleep. I close the book slowly. The lamp keeps its low circle. The pages have been patient company. Tonight ends the small series we began weeks ago. The purpose has not changed. Rest, mercy, hope in Christ, gentle help for the night. My voice stays low. Breath moves steady in the room. The body is invited to follow its pace. Hands rest where they are most comfortable. The head finds its soft place on a pillow, if that helps. The light at the edge of the room is thin. The world outside settles into ordinary sounds. All that noise becomes a backdrop. Not a judge. I read scripture for this hour. I do not read to win arguments. I read to let words land. The passages chosen tonight fold the themes we have carried. Presence, Refuge, grace enough for the next step. A peace that does not try to erase trouble but to keep it from taking the whole heart. The lines are old and tender. They find the places that ache and speak mercy again. If a short ritual helps, keep it with us. Now, place one hand over the place where breath is most true. Feel the ribs lift. Breathe in slowly for 4 counts. Hold 2. Breathe out for 6. Let the breath become a measured tide. The chest finds rhythm. The jaw eases. The muscles behind the eyes unclench just enough to let quiet in. Name one small worry. Keep it narrow. A single word will do. Picture it as a little stone. Do not rehearse the arguments the mind loves. Do not push the worry away with force. See its shape. Lay it on the small table by the bed in the imagination. Close the hand and let the stone rest there. Now imagine open hands reaching without alarm. They take up the stone with steady fingers. The motion is not dramatic. It is ordinary and true. Trust is a small hand movement. It is repeated. It can be simple. Leave the worry where it will not be carried alone tonight. Let the shoulders drop by a small measure. Notice how the breath lengthens a degree. Turn attention to one small kindness from the day. It might be a brief smile, a warm drink, the softness of a blanket. Name it Gayatri. Let that small thing sit beside the stone on the table. Gratitude does not erase pain. It reorders the heart's view so that light and shadow can both be seen. If there is someone to whom a true, brief word can be sent tomorrow, plan that simple step. A short message asking for prayer, a line that names a need. Such small honesty makes community possible. It asks no grand performance. It only asks for company. The body responds when burdens are shared. The load becomes lighter in practical ways. Forgiveness lives gently in this hour too. If something between people sits like a closed thorn, let the thought be named. A short admission. A quiet asking. A readiness to soften that is enough to open the next day to repair. Mercy is small and patient. It often begins with a single unburdened sentence in the morning. If the mind keeps making plans for every fear, place one of those plans into the same hands. It is allowed to be imperfect. A plan that waits until the morning will be wiser than one shaped by midnight panic. The night holds fewer responsibilities than the day. Let it keep them. The peace that comes from Christ is not the same as a world that promises easy outcomes. It is the kind of peace that settles the whole frame of a person. It allows clearer thinking. It makes gentler speech possible. It does not erase sorrow. It changes how sorrow sits in the body. That change is enough for tonight. If sleep arrives, let it. Sleep repairs in ways that waking cannot. It stitches thin places with steady, quiet work. If wakefulness stays, stay with the small images we have used. Return to the table with the stone. Revisit the hands that will hold it. Let the breath be a soft metronome that brings the mind home in small steps. Before closing this series, a short blessing is offered. Hear it not as an incantation, but as a simple truth set into a word. May the steady hands that watch the heart hold what is too heavy tonight. May small mercies come in the morning light. May the breath find its rhythm and the chest, its rest. Let that blessing be a small lamp to carry when eyes reopen. A simple practice to end on. Breathe in slowly. Picture light at the forehead. Let it travel down the face. Loosen the jaw. Warm the throat. The light settles in the chest. Imagine it cradling the small stone and the small kindness. Feel how room opens. Keep the palms soft. Let the shoulders drift down. If this recording has helped, consider coming back. Subscribe gently. A quiet community grows by slow steps. Leave a short note in the comments when the hour allows. Share this recording with someone who needs a hand tonight. Those actions are small, practical ways to widen the circle of comfort. There is no demand to be fixed before sleep, no requirement for bravery, only the invitation to lay something down and to receive a steady presence. The practice is small. Use it often. Repeat it when the night pulls at old wounds. Let the motions become a habit of rest. I will stay near as long as needed. My voice will return if the sleeve of the night draws thin again. For now, let the book rest. Let the lamp be low. Place the last worry gently upon the table. Watch the hands take it up with patient fingers. Listen for the hush that follows. Let sleep come like a tide, slow and sure. Close the eyes when ready. Breathe in calm. Breathe out trust. Imagine the small hands carrying the weight through the night. Keep a single, soft hope in the heart. Mercy will meet the next morning. Hope will be patient. Grace will be enough. Good night. Rest in that quiet. When morning comes, wake with one small promise to yourself. Take the next step slowly. Keep the habit of offering burdens into steady hands. Return here when the night needs company again. The pages will be ready. The lamp will be low. The voice will be steady. Sleep. Now, the room keeps your breath. The hand that watches is near. Rest.